Hey everyone, I'm Steph,
I'm Megan.
and welcome to another episode of Late Night Reads.
Woo! And this week we are diving into the magical world of romantasy and covering Rites of the Starling by Devney Perry. Wow. Oh, wow.
I know. So we are so excited to chat about this book, and part of the reason is because we had so many theories after the end of Shield of Sparrows, and we're really curious to see where the story went. Plus, anytime an MMC says he's gonna go find his wife at the end of the book, we're like, give us the second book, please.
It's going to burn the world down for sure.
Yes. Plus, this book takes us deeper into the world of Caladondra while also opening up information about this other land that we learn about in nearby kingdoms. And we do love world building when we get into stories, right? So the deeper you kind of get into a series, you typically get more of that world, which we're here for. And then there are lots of twists and turns. And I think we're setting up for the potential of a big quest in book 3.
There's got to be a book 3. There has to be.
It's coming out in March.
Well, then there you go. March of next year?
Yeah. Yes, Megan.
Oh, fuck my life. Oh, well, that's true. I mean, I guess we're... But still, I don't want to wait that long. Boo.
Give it to me now.
Give it to me now. Fine. While we're waiting for that, I guess, here are a few things that you should know about the author, Devney Perry. She's a New York Times, USA Today, and Amazon bestselling author of more than 50 romance books, so she's a little busy. And Shield of Sparrows was her first romantasy, so she is getting into the genre, and we are here for it. Shield of Sparrows is currently in development at Amazon MGM, so that'll be cool to see it come to life. And she was actually born and raised in Montana, but now lives in Washington with her husband and 2 sons.
So, before jumping into this book, as always, a couple of key reminders. This episode will contain spoilers. We are assuming that if you are listening, you have read Shield of Sparrows and Rites of the Starling. You have been warned.
Yes.
Also, the book. Therefore, this episode is going to contain some topics that may be sensitive for some readers, including animal abuse or death, anxiety, assault, blood, bullying, childbirth, death, depression, emotional abuse, fire, hospitalization, medical trauma, murder, pregnancy, PTSD, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and violence. And once again, I smile after the list of content warnings, and I don't know why.
Violence. Hooray.
I'm just like, and it's more of like, I think, and here's the list, and I'm done.
Yay. I'm reading from the teleprompter. That's me. But now let's talk tropes. So first up, we have royalty, of course, because Ransom, aka Sexy Man, is the crown prince of Tura, and Odessa is the princess of Quentis. They did have like a weird arranged marriage in Shield of Sparrows, but we all remember how that went down with the little trickery. But she is now also considered to be part of the royal line of Nelphenix, as we find out later because of her mother. OMG. Then we have a slow burn, and oh my god, it is such a slow burn. We do get more angst and sexual tension between Caspia and Andreas, combined then with later Ransom and Odessa, who have been apart for a long time in the book. Definitely a slow burn, but it was good. It was good. Next, we have Touch Her and Die. Ransom literally kills people who try to hurt Odessa in this book. He believes it's because of the Lyssa, but we think he'd do it regardless because if anybody hurts his woman, he's going to hurt them tenfold. And then we have Secret Identity. Although we had suspicions very early on in the book, we're not officially told that Caspia and Andreas are Odessa's parents. Da, da, da. I mean, if you didn't know that already, what are you doing here? But yeah, it's like we find that at the very end of the book, but we had our suspicions. I was like, they have to be. This has to be her parents, right? So that was kind of fun to see that later revealed. And then lastly, we have Forbidden Love. Andreas is the Prince of Quentis, and he is the last person who should be marrying Caspia. In fact, he was actually technically betrothed to another woman who is definitely more suitable than Caspia, according to his mother. So I'm like, oh, girl, you're going to have some awkward mother-in-law issues going on. But
right.
It's okay. Now let's get into every magical twist. So we start out in our prologue. We learn how the Shield of Sparrows Treaty came into existence, and we get to meet Sparrow Wolf, which you're like, oh, that's how it came to be, the Sparrow. She was the princess who becomes a token to be traded for peace between the 5 kingdoms of Calandra. But we have to also say women are not property and we should not be treated as tokens. Rude.
Rude.
But they do that. So Sparrow Wolf is dressed in gray, while all of the kings wear bold fabrics representing their kingdoms. An interesting tie there how Odessa always has to wear gray when she's in the castle before marrying Ransom. So it's like she was always supposed to be the sparrow. And the kings believed that exchanging goods between the kingdoms was not enough to maintain peace, so they were planning to bind the kingdoms together by blood, aka marriage. Because that's just like the right thing to do. So after this treaty is signed in blood by all 5 kings, then the sparrow has to do the same, followed by this super creepy High Voster priest using magic to bind the treaty. And as a result of this treaty, Sparrow will marry the king of Genesis, aka Tanis Oak, because he is the only unwed king. So according to Sparrow, because remember this is her name, the 6 gods cursed Calandra with the crux. And her father says a very interesting comment here: only humans have the power to make the gods insignificant. Which I didn't think too much of until later. Now I'm like, holy shit.
I know.
That's good. We'll get to that in theories. So then Sparrow promises to never worship the gods and never trust the Voster. And her father agrees. And we're like, yeah, same. And it's important to know that Sparrow Wolf, that's her last name, is from Turah. So now we have questions about why Ransom and his father seem to be in such strong support of the high priest. Which later we're like, maybe we shouldn't like the high priest.
Correct.
Interesting.
So the book is organized into 3 sections. After the prologue, we have Division, Discovery, and Dynasty. And the first chapter is told in Ransom's POV. And interestingly, it's the only chapter we get from him in this book. And we have a theory on that we'll talk about later. But it picks up almost immediately after the end of Shield of Sparrows. Ransom is going to Trial to find Odessa because that's where she's supposed to meet him, right? Because they had just experienced this horrible attack by the Crocs and Elder, right? Yeah, she's run off with Evie. She thinks Xavier's died. I mean, like, it's bad. And so he's going there to go find his wife. Unfortunately, he does not find Odessa or Evie there, but Kathleen shows up and she's worried about him because he was pretty angry when he left. Well,
no shit.
No shit. I'm like, thank you, Captain Obvious, Kathleen. Yes, his mother died. His cousin, who is kind of like his stand-in for Crown Prince, also might be dying. He was picked up by a crux that he had to stab with a sword, and then he was dropped and fell on top of her, and then she turned into a woman that looks like his wife. I would be a little angry too. A
little traumatized,
a little bit. A little bit. So basically, and the woman had green blood.
Yeah.
No big deal. No big deal.
You're like, oh no, is this Lyssa? Oh no.
Exactly. But Ransom is convinced at this point that Odessa doesn't know anything about this potential tie she might have to the Crocs, right? He's very convinced that she's unaware. And he decides to head to Quintus, which is where he believes that Odessa would go next, and hoping that he'll find her there with Evie.
And next we switch to Odessa's point of view. It is now 5 days later. Evie, FaZe, and Odessa are still with Brother Dime, which now we're like, do I trust you? Do I not trust you? I'm not sure. But both Odessa and Evie are struggling with some PTSD, like major from the Crux attack. Like, I feel for that little girl so bad.
Yes.
Not to mention that the Voster magic continues to impact Odessa, which she also doesn't fully understand. She's like, why does this hurt to be around you? And at this point, Odessa believes Xavier is likely dead and feels like just this hole in her heart. But she continues to believe that Ransom is alive. And it's the first of many times then that we see her touch the scar from where she cut herself for the blood oath with Ransom. It's kind of like this weird like connection they have with each other. But
yeah,
I don't know if it's like real. But it's also interesting to note that Odessa mentions feeling a hole in her heart. And we're wondering, is that because the Crux that was ultimately killed was a Starling, part of her extended family, technically her aunt? Hole in the heart. And you're like, can they feel each other die? That's crazy. So we're like, is it the sadness over Xavier? Is it the sadness over your Crux aunt? Is it sadness over Ransom? Not sure. But now we have Brother Dime refusing to tell Odessa where they're going, which you're like, rude. And he just insists that they keep up this very rapid pace, even though Odessa and Evie are exhausted. And at first, it's easy to believe that Brother Dime is just an asshole who doesn't care about anything. But we do learn a little bit more about him and the group of Voster priests that he aligns with. So now we're wondering, has he prevented, like, telling Odessa anything more because of the blood oath he probably had? Maybe.
Yeah.
Because remember, they can't say certain things.
Exactly. So when another priest arrives, Brother Score, Odessa finally learns they're headed to Ozarth. And Brother Dime spins up a crown of water for Evie, similar to what he did for Odessa, which makes us wonder if this is yet another breadcrumb and not a magic trick like Odessa originally thought. When Odessa demands to know why they're headed to Ozarth, Brother Dime will only say, "It's the path you must take," and it's the only answer I can give, which is another breadcrumb that he's physically prevented from telling her more. And all I thought was, okay, so we have the Drakens, we have Kiernan, and now we have the Foster priests.
Who just can't tell you more.
Correct. We speak in riddles.
Riddles.
Love that for us. Love that for Odessa. But Brother Dime also mentions that Ransom is loyal to the High Priest, and this is a journey you must take alone. It's the only way to discover your dynasty. He also shares that Tara is not safe for Odessa, and he promised her father he would keep her safe. And this is like kind of one of our first breadcrumbs that Odessa's father really does care for her, even though his words and actions would give everyone else pause. That perhaps he doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, my other favorite part is Brother Diamond says that Odessa must endure for all of Caledondra. And I'm like, once again, we are putting the fate of the world on a young woman's shoulders.
No big deal.
No big deal. No big deal.
Don't have enough going on in our lives at this point.
No.
Why
Correct.
Not? Sure.
Why not?
Why not? Honestly, what's funny is if Odessa was like in her like late 30s, early 40s going through menopause, she'd be like, bring it on. What else?
I got this.
What else you got?
Yeah.
You want me to take over the world or to, have the fate of the world on my shoulders? I got room.
That's like a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday. Yeah, exactly. So, young Odessa is getting ready for the real world, which is crazy.
Correct.
So in our next chapter, we have our first point of view from Caspia, a new character who did not exist in the first book, and we learned a lot from her. So first up, Caspia has this vision of a silver-eyed man killing Emery, who is her sister, and very clearly talking about what happens at the end of Shield of Sparrows. Like Ransom, who is the silver-eyed guy, kills the crux, and it turns into a red-headed woman. And we, I guess, figure that this lady must be Emery. And Caspia and Xandra are both waiting to go through the Rites. Xandra is like her cousin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And once they go through the Rites, they officially become Starlings. So right now they're just kind of like not that level yet. So
Quintessence,
Xandra,
I think, is the official title.
is what?
Quintessence.
Oh yeah. I was like, I don't remember the name of it, but they're
Which
basically
also
not Starlings yet.
Did you notice that Quintessence and Quintus is very similar, even though Quintus was named before Caspia came?
I know. Very interesting.
Yeah.
There's a whole history there that's been erased.
Correct.
That we don't know. Bum, bum, bum. So Xandra encourages Caspia to tell their aunt Oleana about her vision. But Caspia doesn't want to because apparently this aunt is like really rude about visions and refuses to believe them. In fact, she once tried to tell Aunt Oleana about the vision of Emery after it came to her multiple times, but their Aunt Oleana just dismissed it and was like, no, stop it. Go back to bed. Like, no. Now, according to the Starling way, which this is also in a completely different continent from Calandra, since Emery was murdered, according to their way, there must be retribution. There must be revenge. You must basically atone for that. The person does. So this feels like it's going to be a big breadcrumb for what is probably going to happen in the third book. So Xandra and Caspia both wear an elfater,
I think. That's how I pronounced it in my head.
There's not an extra L.
But that's how I did it in my head. It was reader's choice, Megan.
Reader's choice. I'm going to add an extra letter. I'm just kidding.
You can do whatever you want. That's why it's called reader's choice.
That's true. Okay. So Xandra and Caspia both wear an elfater. Damn it. Elfater. Elf pendant.
You can call it an elf pendant if you want.
I'm going to call it an elf pendant, whatever.
Perfect.
And it's red and orange metal with like a silver wing inlaid into the circle, which we knew had to be the same one as the necklace Odessa found of her mother's that was hidden away somewhere. So we're like immediately like, I recognize this thing. And now at this point, we don't know that these are two separate timelines we kind of are assuming like maybe they're at the same time because like Emery's
Yep.
dead, right? So you're like,
Yep.
is this happening kind of like at the exact same time? But So then Aunt Oleana raised Caspia and her sisters as her own daughters because apparently Caspia's mother also died. But she just does not show much affection for her sisters and basically viewed Caspia's tender heart as a weakness. So that's great.
Great. Love
And
that for her.
all we really know about Caspia's mother is that she left Nelphenex when Caspia was a baby, and no one in the family speaks of her anymore. They all just assume that she's dead. Caspia doesn't even know if her mother made it through the Rites at one point, so we don't know. We can assume she's dead, but we truly don't know. Which I'm like,
at least at this point in the book.
At least
find out later, but yeah.
Yeah.
So from what we're told, most people in her family have gone through the Rites by the age of 16. Caspia is 25 and hasn't yet. And then based on the timeline that comes out later, Odessa's around the same age.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So supposedly she'll feel a calling when it's time and it can't be rushed or forced. And there are people within her family that never went through the Rites, such as her Aunt Ophelia and her eldest daughter, Hera. They're born with Starling blood, but for some reason could not shapeshift. So instead, they'll forever be these quintessence flying on the backs of a swift, which I was like, that's kind of like a bird dragon in my brain.
Or is it a griffin? That's what I thought.
Yes. So according to history, Aunt Ophelia and Hera are the first to not have this gift manifest. Did not love that for them. Like that you never want to be the first of like, oh, your magic didn't come. Oh,
it's like an Encanto when she doesn't get a gift. And you're like, oh,
right? Oh.
Bummer.
But what I'm curious about is why didn't it happen for them? Because it feels like that's something important for the next book.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Caspia does finally tell her aunt about the vision regarding Emery once again. And her aunt's like, Emery is not dead. Only, basically, Emery was young and stupid. She went with a man. She'll eventually come back. And I was like, okay, at this point, I'm like, is this wishful thinking? Or does her aunt have visions too? Right? And then we also learned that the Starling have the largest country on the continent of Ken. So this is a whole new continent that we're learning about. There are 3 southern countries controlled by tyrants, who are hungry for power and land. And I assumed that meant they were all ruled by men. Just
one could easily assume that.
One could easily assume.
Yes.
And then her aunt makes a comment about how these Velvetelfers were driven from their land and hunted to near extinction, but she won't let that happen to the Starling. And that was our first breadcrumb about the Voster priests being from Ken. Mm-hmm. And then as Caspia stares out into the water, she gets this tingling sensation, goosebumps, and feels something pulling her towards the water. And she knows that is the Rites.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
And also, can you imagine like how freaky that is? Like all of a sudden your body's like, oh.
Tingle, tingle, tingle. And not in a good way tingle.
I mean, well, maybe.
Does this Rites tingling feel similar to an orgasm?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not based on how it's described.
That's true. Boo. So meanwhile, it's been another 3 days with Odessa and Evie on the road with Brother Dime and Brother Score. Evie is continuing to have nightmares, of course, and asking for her papa, causing Odessa to just... It's so sad. She just, like, has to stop writing and, like, comfort her. Because you're like, yeah, this child just went through a very traumatic life event where she, like, witnessed her father potentially die in front of her. And she's, like, still covered in his blood. And you're like, oh, God, this is bad.
Yeah.
But while Odessa is trying to comfort her, unfortunately, there are some grizzers, which is, like, a big grizzly bear something. And they come and try to attack them. And Odessa pushes Freya as hard as possible with Brother Score using his magic to just try and mask their scent to get the monsters off their trail. And finally, they arrive at a cabin where we meet Damon and Sally. Now, this couple knows Brother Dime and is honored to provide shelter for the Sparrow. We also learn that Damon has a lionwit claw on his necklace, and it was given to him by his father, who was allegedly gifted it by a lionwick after freeing him from a trap. Which is so fun, like, seeing all this and, like, later hearing about the visions, you're like, oh, oh, oh. So this claw apparently kept his father from getting sick until he died, and now it belongs to Damon and will eventually be passed on to his son. And it reminds Odessa of a story that she heard from Luella that was in that journal that has an emblem of her necklace on it. That very same journal that has led Luella to create this elixir that played a role in Lyssa. Bum,
So,
bum,
and then,
bum.
bum, bum, bum. So, in the next chapter, we're back in Caspia's POV, and she has left 3 letters on her dresser for her aunt, Xandra, and Graciela, which was Emery's daughter, because she's planning to leave, believing these visions of Emery's death and her Rites are linked together. We also learn that not every quintessence survives her first shift, making the rite very dangerous and deadly. I'm like, great.
Cool.
Great.
Sounds like a great journey.
Sounds so looking forward to this. This is why it's not like an orgasm, Megan.
That's true.
Because you could die.
Yeah, no thanks.
And
although death by orgasm doesn't sound too bad.
It does not, but I don't think that's what this is, unfortunately.
No. Mm-mm.
So Caspia has hired a pirate to take her away from Nelphenex, and she's able to escape the guards by wearing Emery's alfalfa rings and basically like, oh, I'm a Starling. Leave me alone. I can do whatever I want. Emery had left them behind along with her daughter after being given an ultimatum by her aunt to leave her love, Max, or forget becoming the future queen. That's what we were told at this point. And it turns out that Caspia was like, if I'm going to hire a pirate, I will hire Cap, Max's brother. And then at this point, I was like, ooh, is Caspia and Max, like his brother Cap, going to get it on? They did not. Someone else does with Cap, but not Caspia.
Yeah. But not Caspia. But I was also like, ooh, a sexy pirate. Hello.
I know. Hi. We like pirates.
We like pirates. So now we're back in Odessa's point of view. And she's awakened by another nightmare of the attack. Again, they are going through extreme PTSD at this point. And when she speaks with Sally, she urges her now to prepare for the Crux migration. Because at this point, Odessa is still under the impression that the Crux she saw was a scout. And that means that the migration is going to be coming soon. So she's like, you guys should be preparing. You should like get your supplies, like go, go, go. And there's also a moment where Evie starts to lose it because she wants to wear her shirt that is covered in Xavier's blood, but Odessa won't let her. And it's like,
it's heartbreaking.
Truly heartbreaking. Like, I have a young child. And so like trying to imagine like putting them on like certain clothes when they don't want to. And if they're like emotionally distressed, like that just rips your heart apart. You're like, I can't. It's like you need to have a clean clothes. You can't be in this shirt that's drenched in your father's blood anymore. You got to change. But thankfully, Sally has a really great idea of how to attempt to clean the shirt and her stuffed rabbit, which is also very dirty, so that Evie could still keep it, but just like have it be cleaned, which we're like, good call. So then next, Odessa learns that Brother Dime is leaving because the high priest is expecting him. Oh boy. And he's already been delayed long enough. So Odessa and Evie will stay at the house with Brother Score for one more day before getting back on the road again. Odessa attempts to ask Brother Dime a bunch of questions, but once again, doesn't give her any answers. He's like, probably because he can't, because of the blood oath. So, however, when she does ask about the old language, he responds that Brother Score can teach her. And so we're like, okay, but she's like, but how will he teach me? He doesn't speak to me. And he's like, no, he has his ways. And you're like, cryptic.
Very helpful.
So helpful. Thanks so much. And then it's interesting when Brother Score does approach Odessa, she does not feel that oppression of his magic on her like she does with Brother Dime. So that initially causes her to assume maybe he's a weaker Voster priest, which ends up being a major misconception. He's in fact very, very strong and can control the outward like projection of his magic so that it doesn't hurt her.
Yes, which is really fascinating. So we switch back to Caspia's POV, and she is shocked to find out that her cousin Xandra is a stowaway on the ship. Yay!
Are you really that shocked? I mean, come on.
No, I expected her to go, right? Like, I mean, that's what you and I would do. We'd be like sneaky about it.
Yeah.
But she has to pay for the voyage with her alfalfa bands, which are different than the rings, which is the same as what Caspia did. Xandra didn't want Caspia to travel alone and hoped to help her seek vengeance against the silver-eyed man. It's also like really important to point out the Rites is typically a journey that a Starling takes alone. So Xandra being with Caspia is very unusual based on everything we've been told. Additionally, the ship is about to be attacked by Marwheels, which is similar to what happened in the Shield of Sparrows. And if I was in this land, I would never get on the ship.
No.
However, it does go a little bit differently because the divine, which is how their god, bonded the Starling bloodline to animals, causing the Marwheels not to attack them. In fact, it's more like dolphins. They just put their hands out and they like nose them.
They're
It's
like,
just
hello, little pretties.
hello,
This
pretty.
one's a boy, this one's a girl. And they're like, oh, do some flips. And all the pirates are like,
What the fuck?
yeah.
I also was like, are they ever going to let you guys off the ship? Because if you can control Marwheels from attacking, like that seems like something they would want on board.
Useful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we also learned that some of the other visions that Caspia previously had have come true at this point. What's fascinating is everything that she talks about, she keeps thinking are things that happened in the past. When I'm reading about them, I'm like, girl, these are things that happened in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, like her sister Emery had said, oh, you can see the past. And so that's what Caspia believes. And at this point, I started to wonder if Caspia was seeing her future and her story. And we were reading her story that happened in the past. So that was the point, like on the ship, where I started going, I don't think these are the same timelines. I think this Caspia is from the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But did not figure out yet that she was Odessa's mother.
No, we'll talk about when like I had that kind of like, I was like, oh, no, I'm pretty sure this is it, which is way earlier than we find out.
I kept thinking that maybe some way Emery was her mother.
Okay.
That's what I kept thinking for a while. And then eventually I figured it out and I was like,
And Ransom killed her mother. That would definitely hurt a relationship.
Yeah. Like my aunt, whatever, but.
Correct.
So next, Odessa, oopsies. Next, Odessa is trying to learn the old language, with Brother Score being the best tutor ever. Not. As they travel along by horseback. They're just like, she's like, does this mean this? And he's just like, she's like, is that silence correct? Yes. Okay, thanks. Like, that's how she's learning. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
God. So in one of these journals that Odessa has with her, there's a story about a man with golden hair standing on a cliffside while a woman with red hair cries for leaving her love behind. There is also mention of her sisters going with her on the ship. And Odessa remembers how Kathleen had said that this book reads almost like a person's dreams. A breadcrumb then for how the book came to be written. And we're just like, ooh, is this Caspia's book? Is this some of the visions happening? I mean, now I am. At this point, I'm like, I don't know. Like, we'll see. So the stories in this book take on a whole new meaning because now Odessa sees smoke. And they find a woman holding a snake, preparing to throw it in the fire and use its charred body to treat her poisonous bite. And you're like, the fuck is that? Like, what? And what happens in front of Odessa is almost identical to what she had read in the book. And you're like, oh shit. This is, what? Huh. And the only exception was how Brother Score actually went to go help soothe the woman's burn with water and encasing her injury in ice. And you're like, that's interesting. And Odessa realizes there how powerful Brother Score actually is, because only the Voster that she's seen conjure ice is the high priest. So she's like, how can you do that? What the fuck? But, of course, things get worse then when Odessa and Brother Score start to hear this. And it's the berry wolves, and they're hunting them. And you're like, oh fuck, we have to run. Great. So once again, we now are reinforcing that theory that monsters are drawn to Odessa, but she doesn't know why. And we don't really know why yet either. But Odessa and Evie then ride very, very fast on Freya, and she can see that these bear wolves are hurting them, like literally like trying to like scoot them off and like kill them. But thankfully, Brother Score can use his wind power to prevent the monsters from attacking them, like literally like pushing them off. Until, at last, there are 5 berry wolves, and they end up becoming trapped. And in this moment, Odessa and Evie believe they're going to die, and I'm like, they can't die. They can't die, right?
It's too early.
It's too early in the book. We're like this far in. I'm like, they can't die. So I'm like, what's going to happen? And then we see Brother Score use his magic to drain all of the blood from the monsters. All the green blood, by the way, meaning that Lyssa has now expanded into Ozarth. But like, literally just drains the blood from them until they become like husks of their animal carcasses. And you're just like,
yeah,
oh shit, Brother Score.
Oh. Yeah,
damn.
right?
Don't make you angry.
No, definitely not. But also, like, I feel a little bit safer in it now.
Yeah, I kind of feel okay now. I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay,
cool.
You got us.
Yeah.
So Back on the ship with Caspia, this navigation is solely driven by the pull she has towards which she assumes is her Rites. However, Cap is like ready to be done with this journey because he's a pirate. There's no map. All he can see is open water. They're past the halfway point for their rations. And he's told her they're going to turn around for multiple days. And she finally convinces him to give her one more day. And that's it. And this is where we learn that Xandra has also been sharing his bed. And he's pretty infatuated with her.
Oh,
so,
my.
Oh my.
Somebody's getting it on with the captain.
Correct. And then Caspia shares another dream or vision with Xandra about a young boy surrounded by floating books, a breadcrumb for something that happens in the future. She also has visions of a young man in a forest hunting with a green cloak. The man finds a golden cat snared in a trap, sets it free. That cat or lion wick gives him a severed toe, which the man wears around his neck. This man never gets sick or has pain. He gives the necklace to his grown son, then sits down by a tree and dies, which leads Caspia to believe the necklace either prolonged the man's life or kept him strong. And then Xandra
right? We've seen the story before.
Exactly, right? And then Xandra claims to feel the thrum of the Rites too, but it feels like a different beat in her chest, another heart. She offers to be persuasive with Cap if they need more time. And then she shares his cock is pierced and she likes it. And I was like, and tell me more. And we did not get more.
I was like, wait, what? What? Tell me about this cock piercing. Details, please.
Details.
Rude.
While she sleeps, Caspia has yet another vision of a man with brown hair on a horse riding with a young girl with gray eyes. They are Indigo Mountain's Captain White, which is not something Caspia has ever seen in real life. When she wakes up, the thrum is stronger, then it goes quiet because land is ahead. Ooh. And we're going to talk about this young girl with gray eyes.
So now we are back in Odessa's point of view. They have stopped for the night to camp and learned that Brother Score also, ironically now, prays to the divine, claiming that there is only one God. And Odessa's like, there's 6. What are you talking about? I've never heard of this divine thing. But we are like, oh my God, we've heard of the divine. We know what the divine is. Like, interesting. So then Odessa goes back to her book, and she's reading a story about a man with 3 raw gashes on his face and a lime green animal hanging upside down. It's an alligask. So like a giant alligator, basically. And the hide of the alligask becomes fabric for the man's coat and a pair of boots, along with a mask to cover up his scars and lost eye. And when the man encounters another alligask, it doesn't attack him. Almost like the creature just can't see the path that he walks, that he's like blending in as if he's another alligask. So we're like, okay, interesting story. Like, But already we're like, all right, when are we going to see this happen in real life? So then they reach Orson Canyon 4 days later, and it's a very treacherous trail and requires them to walk behind a waterfall, which you're like, cool, pretty, slippery. Yeah. Odessa is very alarmed by the terrain and demands that Brother Score tell her what they are doing there. His answer is that he needs to retrieve something and requires Odessa's help. And she agrees to help if he will take them to Quintus afterwards. And unfortunately, Evie has to stay back with Faze, with the horses, because literally Brother Score is like, this is not safe for her. She needs to stay here. Which we're at least thankful for, that he's like, this is no place for a child to go. And so she's like, okay. So Odessa and Brother Score walk down the rest of this journey. And he promises, like, hey, Evie will be fine. It's all good. But as they walk, Brother Score tells Odessa to follow the pain, because she can feel like the Voster pain. He's like, feel that, focus on that, let it channel you, and to the tunnel to help guide their path. So once they get to the end of a certain tunnel, Brother Score assumes like maybe she took a wrong turn because like there's nothing here. And Odessa's like, well, what's this over here? And she like reaches down into like this water that's like a small pool, and she starts screaming in pain and she blacks out. And you're like, what? And then when she wakes up and Brother Score is just like, well done. And you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
How did I, what? Like,
what?
How did I get back out of that tunnel? And what do you mean, well done? What was in there? Why did I scream? Yeah. What was that water?
Lots of questions, right? So the next Cap and the rest of the crew are leaving Xandra and Caspia on land, and he promises to listen for the beat of Xandra's wings when she flies back to find him after completing her rites, which is so sweet and sad because, like, girl, You're not gonna do that.
No.
Turns out she got feelings for this pirate and his Piercecock, as one would.
Of course.
Of course. So on land, both Caspia and Xandra don't feel the thrum anymore, which is really interesting. They also wonder if they're in the same place where the Swift migrate, which is forbidden for the Starling to travel to without extreme consequences. They just don't know what those consequences are. As they walk, they're both feeling dizzy and unsure if it's related to being on the ship for so long or the beginning of the Rites. Once it starts raining, they seek shelter in a cave with yellowish brown stone, and it looks like the cave have teeth forming like a lattice maze, which is another breadcrumb that we'll learn later for where one of the orbits is likely hidden.
So now we are back in Odessa's point of view. She wakes up from being asleep for 2 days. And again, this is like after the whole like pool water incident. And she's like, I've been asleep for 2 days? What the fuck just happened? And finds that Brother Score is there being very, very nice to Evie. And he's like, oh, you're just going to rest here for a little bit because I have to go. And she's like, I'm sorry, what?
What?
You're leaving us? Like, I saw what you did with the Berry Wolves. I can't do that. I need your help. Like, what the fuck? And he's like, you'll be fine. Don't worry. Here's some instructions on how to find your way to Quentis. Like, turn left at this, turn right at that. You're fine. And she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, but don't tell anybody about the waterfall because your father's life depends on it. Cool. And she's like, what was in the tunnel? What was it? And he just goes, liberty. You're like,
thank you.
Fuck.
Like the bell?
That is the most, you're right? Yeah, it's like, that's the most roundabout way you can answer anything. But again, he's definitely tied to some kind of like blood oath. He can't say much. Just liberty. And you're like, great. But then she also finally learns that Brother Score can suppress his magic, and that's why she wasn't feeling that like deathly like pulse against her. And he tells her that she needs to find a warrior in Calandra who will save this realm. He also claims they will meet again after she fulfills her destiny, and she should stay away from the high priest and not trust him. So after Brother Score leaves, Odessa learns from Evie that he had something round and shiny the size of a melon. And that's what Odessa believes he must have taken out of the tunnel. So we're like,
what is it? Where does it go?
what is this?
At this point, right?
Yeah, we're like, okay, cool.
So when we see Xandra and Caspia again, they're struggling and assume the cave somehow made them sick, or it's the Rites. Caspia feels like her insides are being shredded by invisible claws. Her head throbs, she can't eat, and it sounds like she has a fever. They end up falling asleep, and then Caspia is woken to a clicking sound, and we know at that point they're in Calendaria, and she's hearing a fucking berry wolf, and I was like,
Not good.
Girl, not
Run
good.
away.
Run away.
Yeah.
So Caspia and Xandra start running through the forest. Caspia does what would happen to me. She injures her ankle. Then the beast decides to make its presence known, and Xandra puts her palm out like it's a marrow wheel that will lovingly touch her. But Caspia realizes this animal is not like the ones from home. It's like, Dorothy, you are not in Kansas anymore. And it makes a series of clicking sounds to call its pack. Great. Cool. Knowing they can't outrun the animals, they decide to try and fight them, and then Xandra starts to go into her Rites, telling Caspia to run, which she does until she ends up at a ravine and 3 beasts are coming at her. Then Xandra, who has shifted into her animal form, shows up almost like she's the new leader of this said pack, snarls at Caspia, and so the Caspia's only option is to jump into the ravine.
Oof.
Or die by her cousin as a berry wolf.
Not good.
I would have jumped.
I would have jumped, yeah. Been like, okay,
yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
And I immediately am like, oh my god, is Xandra going to be the berry wolf? That is the one that bit.
Ransom? I know. That's what I thought too.
I'm like, oh, yep, that's got to be it.
I was like, that has to be it.
Back to Odessa's point of view. She is woken up by an elderly man who is kicking her because he says people in Norcast do not like it when outsiders sleep in their gardens. So now we're like, okay, is that okay when it's a local then? Like,
And like, how do you know?
How do you know that they're outsiders? Like, just because never see me around. And he's clearly a traveler too. So it's like,
right.
Do you even go here, sir? I don't know.
Right.
But Odessa and Evie continue down the road with this guy because they're like, hey, can we just like join you? Because like we're tired and we want to ride along. And so they get to this ferry. And unfortunately, Odessa and Evie don't have any money to pay for the ferry. But thankfully, this very nice gentleman, Wells, takes care of their passage fee, only asking for Odessa to keep her sword and to keep Evie alive as a thank you. So we're like, oh, what a good man. He then does warn Odessa not to stay long in the camps once they arrive and to just walk in the opposite direction from any of the ferrymen. He's like, you do not want to do that. I'm like, well, that's good. That's very nice of you, sir. So once they're in this town, Odessa finds their shelter in like a lean-to, just like basically like a side of the house shack. Yeah. And the woman owner offers them some dinner. She knows Wells. And it's at this point that Odessa notices no one seems to be making any preparations for the migration. She's like, a Crux scout was seen. Like, what are you guys doing? Why are you just like hanging around? She's like, has King Ramsay not sent any word to the other kingdoms about this scout? Like, what the fuck is happening? So that evening, Odessa reads Evie another story from this book about a woman in metal armor with pale hair and a cheek inked with a row of 4 painted stars. And she is surrounded by sand and ends up tearing off all of her armor, and her face screams to the sky and is just like, freedom. And you're like, great, what does this mean? And again, there's a breadcrumb here about how this woman has white hair, very similar to Kathleen. We're like, huh, interesting. We've only seen one other person with that, so could they be related? And if things can't get any weirder, this woman's husband, whose name is Stryker, stops by and offers to guide them through the bogs. Oh, and guess what? He is wearing a lime green coat with 3 large scars on his face and a missing eye, just like the story from the journal. You're like,
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. You're like, that is an Allegask like coat. What?
I know.
Crazy.
So
Crazy.
we switch again back to Caspia's POV. She has a dream or vision of a woman with red hair being held captive in a cell alongside a man whose tongue has been cut out. She can't shift because she's pregnant and won't leave the man. She hasn't told him about the pregnancy yet. And whoever is holding her captive experiments on her, slicing open her veins to steal her gifted blood. Based on what we learn, right, later in the book, this is a vision of what's been happening to Emery and Max, but Caspia doesn't want to believe that it's real. Because it's confusing, right? She thinks Emery is dead, so this vision doesn't make a ton of sense unless it happened in the past.
Yeah.
When Caspia wakes up, she's in a bed in an unknown room, wearing different clothes, with no recollection of what happened after she jumped off the cliff and fell into the river. And that's what the man with sandy hair comes into the house, and he speaks a different language than Caspia, and we get to meet Andreas. He has an amber starburst in his eyes, and that's when we start to wonder, at least I did, if this is the story of how Odessa's parents met, and confirms what we previously suspected, or he does, that Caspia is in Calendaria. But this was the moment I was like, these are her parents.
Yeah. I started to figure that out then too. I was like, there you go. That's the one. So meanwhile, Odessa and Evie are traveling through the bogs with Stryker, and the smell is bad. Like sulfuric, very stinky. No, thank you, sir. No. And during this journey, Evie learns that Luella has died, and now continues to assume that her father is dead too. Which Odessa's like, I don't want to confirm that for you. Like, let's just do one at a time. So we also learn here that Allegasks are not stealthy monsters. And you should be able to hear them in the grass rustling around before they move. Like, you're going to know that they're there before it happens. And Odessa should use her crossbow to shoot one through the eye to slow it down if they do end up coming across one. Which, of course, means they're going to come across one, naturally. Immediately. Because all of a sudden, Faze bares his fangs and hisses at the water, and Allagask slams into the fence, continually trying to get free and attack them. Once again, showing that these monsters are drawn to Odessa. And as she tries to gain control over Evie and the horse, Faze ends up getting dropped, and we're like, oh,
no, not the puppy. Well, I mean, he's a Turkin, but to me, he's a puppy, right? I'm like, little baby puppy Turkin.
And Freya just takes off. And, like, there's a moment where, like, they're looking back and they see the Allegask, like, maybe possibly going to kill Faze, until all of a sudden another rider comes along and kills the Allegask. And it's a woman with pale hair. What? Just like the one from the journal. And we officially now get to meet the Mavens. Hello.
So back in Caspia's POV, she has another vision of a woman with brown curls holding a sword at a man's throat, one that's too heavy for her to wield. The man's eyes shift from green to silver, and that happens to be a vision that occurs in Shield of Sparrows when Ransom gives Odessa a sword for the first time. It also happens to be at least in our opinion, the first vision that Caspia has of her daughter.
Whoa.
Yeah. She doesn't realize that at the time, but right, like that's the first vision based on what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So Caspia feels a very strong attraction to Andreas, but also knows she has to leave. In fact, she tries to leave once, ends up passing out on the road. That feels like kind of like what I would do, like if I'm really sick or after I've had surgery. I'm like, I'm fine, I can do it. And then,
I got it.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. So Andreas finds her, brings her home, and says she needs more rest. As she gets better, she makes it clear that she needs to go find her cousin, Xandra, but he's concerned about the monsters and wants to learn more about Nelphenex. He believes everything she tells him about her country, but she doesn't share the shape-shifting part. I mean, girls gotta keep a few secrets.
I mean, yeah.
Also,
mystery.
How do you explain to someone that you met for the first time? Also, at some point, I might shift into an animal.
Mm-hmm.
When my cousin did, it wasn't great.
Wasn't good. I might kill you.
Wasn't good. I might kill you. I don't know when it would happen. I'm not sure I can stop it. I'm sure I'll be fine.
Be fine. It's good.
So Cassia's plan at this point is to head towards Tara because it's the farthest kingdom from her current location. And then Andreas mentions that there are lumbermen there. And that seems to align with the vision that, well, yeah, that also Caspia had of Emery's death, right? Because there were tall trees and lots of wood. This is another really important thing that Andreas mentions, how everyone in Calendaria has starbursts in their eyes. And I wondered, why are we being told this again? Because we learned this in the last book. But I have a theory about why this is important that we'll talk about later.
Okay.
So amber for Quintus, green for Tara, magenta for Lane, blue for Ozeth, and persimmon? It's a fruit thing.
Persimmon?
Persimmon. In Genesis. And Caspia is the first person he's ever met without a starburst, which causes her to assume the silver-eyed man must be from another continent because he doesn't have a starburst either. Andreas also states that when Caspia leaves, he'll return to Quintus. And I'm like, and I'm correct. At this point, I was like, I know I'm correct.
And I know who you are.
Correct.
Now, how do you get to be the king? Yes.
Correct.
So now we're back with Odessa. And after crossing the bogs, which, by the way, Phase is fine. All good.
Didn't die.
We were worried. We were very worried. Odessa arrives in a small town filled with huts and tents. Everything looks very temporary. Like, she's like, nothing here would survive the migration. Like, this is bad. Why aren't people survival mode? And again, she's like, I don't think people know still. This is weird. And they set up camp for that night. Stryker admits that he's never seen that many Allagast try to break through the fences. He's like, 9 did it today, but only 1 made it through. And again, Odessa's like, God damn it, these monsters are trying to get at me. Like, I'm catnip for them. This is ridiculous.
Monster nip.
Yeah, monster nip, yeah. And she's like really worried now. She's like, how many people are going to die because of me? Because like, they just like to come after me. It's like, they're mosquitoes. And she's like the only one with blood that they like.
Yep.
Big, scary mosquitoes that bite you and kill you.
Yeah.
Next.
Thank you.
So Stryker suggests that maybe Odessa tries to get the Mavens to travel with her to Quintus because he's like, I'm going to go back home now. So good luck.
Bye.
Maybe take these soldiers with you. Like, they'll do it for a fee, you know? So she's like, okay, I'll give it a go, I guess. So then Odessa goes to talk to the Mavens, and Jody reminds her a lot of Ransom. Like, ooh, tall, dark, and handsome. Hello, sir. But no, because my heart only belongs to one man, my Ransom boy. Which is another breadcrumb for Odessa being a Starling, because once they give their heart away to a man, they cannot love another. So Odessa then learns that the Mavens go wherever the coin leads them, which makes sense. And Odessa offers to pay them to take her to Quintus, but you're going to have to wait to get paid until we arrive, which is not usually what they do, but they're like, we'll see. But Jody suggests they barter for her sword, which is one that Ransom gave her, and she's like, fuck no. And he's like, or I'll take Faye's. And she's like, double fuck no. Like, not going to happen. And then one of the men there, Matthias, mentions how they have pockets to fill before the migration. And Odessa just thinks to herself, you won't have to wait that long. Which she thinks to herself. But somehow Thora hears her. And you're like, she's like, what did you say? And literally Odessa's like, did I say that out loud? I didn't think I did. But that leads to Odessa telling them about the Crux Scout. And Jody becomes really, really angry about the Turins and their fucking secrets, supposedly, which now we're like, what other secrets? Like, is that just in general? Like, they keep secrets from people? Or do you know more things than you're telling us, Jody? What's up? Jody then also starts to question why there was only one scout, because there's usually more than one. And now I'm also kind of wondering, like, why was there only one scout? That's interesting. Because, like, if that alleged Crux scout was Emery, again, and not a scout at all, maybe the migration isn't going to happen and that was just Emery.
Yep.
So Jody claims to not believe her. He's like, I don't believe you. I don't. But Thora is like, I want to know more. I want to know who you are. I want to know everything about you. Tell me all the info. Spill your tea, girlfriend. And Odessa's like, my name is Odessa Wolf. Which is enough, honestly, to secure Thora's agreement to take them to Quintus at the cost of 1,000 zillas per maven. You're like,
which is a lot.
That's a lot. But she's like, no problem. My daddy's rich.
They don't call him the Gold King for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So in Caspia's POV, she finds a note from Andreas asking her to stay alive along with a satchel filled with food and gold coins. And this is our first clue that Andreas is wealthy because he's living in a cabin that's not super nice.
Yeah.
He also leaves her a detailed map. When she leaves and starts walking, she immediately misses him, right? This pull towards him, which reminds me, right, of how Odessa's feeling without Ransom. Mm-hmm. She comes across a Fennec and immediately assumes it's friendly because we saw earlier in the book when she was an Elfenex, right? Like Fennecs are like pets. She's like, oh, puppy. And then it attacks her.
Rude.
And she doesn't want to hurt it because killing is not in her nature as a Starling, right? They're bonded almost to animals. And then an arrow strikes the Fennec, killing it, and Andreas shows up and he plans to go with her. And then they finally kiss.
Yes.
I was like, oh.
The slowest burn.
I mean, it continues to slow burn, but like at least we're kissing.
Yeah. And, you know, we got like a tiny little like singe of a burn when like Xandra and the captain were like getting it on. We're like, Pierce cock? What? But that's what? You're like,
no.
Oh, no. So at least we get a kiss. And we're like, okay.
I'll take it.
So now we are with Odessa. And she's traveling with the Mavens at a grueling pace. And she keeps waiting to see some more crooks. She's like looking around like, okay, they should be coming, right? But doesn't see a single one. And no one that they've encountered has heard anything about the scout or of anything else. So Odessa mentions to Jody that her husband is in Quintus, which he assumes she's lying because, like, why would a man let his wife travel all by herself this long, long distance with a child? Which,
he's not wrong.
You're not wrong. Like, yeah, it's like, why would they indeed? And Evie also asks about it because she still believes that Odessa is married to Xavier. She's like, what do you mean? Daddy's waiting for me? And it's like, oh, fuck. So Odessa's like, actually, honey, I'm not really married to your daddy. She's like, I'm married to Ransom, but it's a secret, okay? And Evie becomes very upset because that means Odessa can't be her mama. And you're like,
damn, she thinks her papa's dead, right? Like, she's just like...
She's like, well, where am I supposed to go? And Odessa's literally like, you will be with me forever.
Yeah.
Like, I will be here for you. Don't worry about it, girlfriend. I got you. And then Jody, being Jody, pokes around about who Odessa really is, and Thora finally admits they all know she is the Sparrow.
And they've known all along.
And they've known all along.
Like,
which is why they also believe, like, all right, we're going to get our 1,100,000 whatever Zillas, because we know who you are.
We know who you are, yep. So next, Caspia has a vision of Xandra in her animal form killing Andreas and then her. And that's the first time she's ever had a vision about herself. She also mentions how all of her visions have been in the past. And I'm like, girl, no, they have not. No. So Andreas opens up about how he left Quintus a year ago to prove to himself that he could walk away because he knows he can't avoid Quintus altogether. I don't know, perhaps because you're the heir to the throne, Andreas, just throwing that out there. Maybe. And then Caspia finally confesses about coming to Calendaria to avenge her sister's death and how her aunt is the queen of Nelfenex. She also shares about the vision of her sister's death, and he believes her. At this point, I'm like, Andreas, you believe a lot of crazy shit.
What? I'm kind of like, do you know more than you're letting on?
Right. Like, what do you know? Because you're just like, I believe you.
Yeah.
And then there is also a mention of them having sex, but we get zero details. So I don't even count that as a spicy chapter.
No. So then Odessa is now traveling with the Mavens. She shares some information about Lyssa. Since the Mavens have come across an animal with green blood, they're like, this is fucking weird. And she's like, it's Lyssa. And so what's interesting to point out here is that Thora, who originally avoided Odessa after they first met, is now her constant companion and is like asking her tons of questions. However, Odessa doesn't share that Ransom is both the guardian and the prince, or she does not share that Evie is King Ramsay's daughter, or that Luella is responsible for the Lyssa infection. She's like, I'm not gonna tell you any of this shit.
No.
But I'll tell you other stuff. And Thora admits that while she doesn't necessarily believe the migration is coming, as Odessa claims, she does believe her about the Lyssa. And you're like, okay, well, at least we got that one. That's good. So after some of the Mavens leave to go on separate orders, we learn that two of them are actually a couple. It's Goldine and Dare. But they've kept it hidden because you are literally supposed to give up all of your ties, past, present, and future, when you become a Maven. So, like, making any kind of, like, relationships beyond, like, working together is forbidden. And that's also when we learned about Salem, who is the employer of the Mavens, and how every Maven is indebted to his service and his command until their debts are paid off. And the number of the stars that are on their faces indicate how much debt they owe to Salem. And so we're like, damn, Thora girl, you got a lot of things there. Like,
yeah.
What did you do? And Thora also has a very strong reaction when Odessa brings up if she knows any of the Voster. And she's like, never speak to me of the Brotherhood again. You're like,
Don, don, don.
What do you know? Now I want to ask you.
Also, how do, as you erase your debt, Megan, how do those stars come off your face unless it's magic?
Ooh. But what if you like it? What if you're like, this is my...
your style. It's like the new freckle.
Yeah. Yeah. The sparkle freckle. It's a sparkle star.
Exactly. So we're back in Caspia's POV. She has yet another vision of Xandra in her animal form. Andreas is dying, and then she welcomes the Divine's embrace. And it's the 6th time she's had a dream of Andreas and her dying on behalf of her cousins. 6. Also not great. When she wakes up, she's at Ozarth at in an inn in bed with Andreas. Then we finally get our first spicy scene in the book where Caspia and Andreas have sex. But we have sex. Then she has another vision where Andreas is in silver armor with his throat torn out. And I'm like, no.
That's like a cold bucket being thrown on your spicy
Correct.
scene. You're like, well, that's just fucking rude.
Like, I had great sex. I fell asleep. And then I had this vision.
No thanks.
So next, they go explore town because they've been like holed up in the inn for a little bit. He ends up buying her a sword. They're about to purchase a loaf of bread when a little boy tries to steal Andreas's coin purse. He ends up buying a loaf of bread for them and for the boy. Then the boy takes off. While they're still in town, Caspia has another vision of the little boy, but he's in a tent eating the bread until a larger child steals it from him. According to Caspia, this is the only vision she's ever had while awake at this point, because all the rest have been while she's sleeping. And she hopes that she can change his fate, because if she can, then she might be able to do the same for Andreas. So they end up finding the boy in the tent. We learn his name is Kos, and that's also when Caspia realized he's the same boy she's seen earlier in a vision with floating books, even though that scene hasn't come to life yet. They end up taking him back to the inn with him, and she decides to give up her quest for vengeance and going to Tara and go to Quintus and take Kos with her and Andreas.
Which you're like, whoa. Now I'm thinking, who is Kos going to be in the future?
Right.
So now Odessa is traveling through the skeleton forest, which, no thanks.
No
thanks. You know what? I could really do without the skeleton forest.
I thought about the blood forest.
The blood forest,
and,
yeah.
I was like 0 out of 10. Do not want to go.
No thanks. The ground is gross. It's mottled with like black and gray patches, and like white ash floats in the breeze. Almost like all color had been leached from this place. And I'm like, were the Voster there? According to Jody, some believe there is an ancient fire that caused it, while others think it was a curse from Isaac, the god of death, who used the trees from the forest to build his throne in the shades and took all of the life with him to hell. So basically, no matter how much it rains, nothing can grow there. And we're like, This feels like
that's
a
not great.
breadcrumb.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Now, during the journey with the Mavens, Odessa does tell Evie another story from her journal about a woman wearing colorful necklaces who is painting flowers on a little girl's cast. And another story is about a little boy flying a kite and deciding to name a dog Titus. Jody is very interested in this book of stories and wants to know where Odessa got it. However, things get really crazy when, guess what? Berry wolves show up.
Great.
And you're like, oh, fuck. Well, good thing is the Mavens end up killing at least 9 of them. But then another dozen show up, and you're like, well, this fucking sucks. And Matthias ends up dying, literally getting killed by a berry wolf. And Freya is hit by one. And you're like,
Yeah.
It's little scales that go on across its side. It's like cuts into her flesh, allowing her to collapse. And Odessa is just like distraught because Freya's been there for her this entire time.
Yep.
Like even like she's more than a horse, you know, like
Yeah.
it's her bestie. And Odessa begs Jody to take Evie because she's like, I know not all of us are gonna survive. Like, please take her on your horse and like go. And she like pulls her sword out and she's prepared to fight this berry wolf to, you know, protect Freya. And out of nowhere, Ransom shows up and kills the berry wolf and tells her to run. You're like, oh, Ransom?
I know.
What? Which
The
before
worst
that,
part, I was say the worst part was when she had to slit Freya's throat. Like I just was like, oh
yeah. It was like that scene from, is it the storybook? The one from the 90s where like the horse gets stuck in the mud and
I have no idea.
dies. Maybe I think it's the never ending story.
Ah.
Like the horse gets basically stuck in the mud and has to die, and like the little boy is screaming, no, get up, go, and just can't. Anyway, I did shed a tear.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
It is. I shed a tear. I was very sad. I want Freya to not be dead, but I think she is, which is very sad.
I'm also curious how Ransom can find Odessa in the middle of this land.
Right? Yeah. Must be the palm.
Oh.
So the sad news is we lose Freya, but the good news is Ransom finds us again. So, yay. So when the rest of the Mavens return to find them, Ransom just refuses to pretend anymore. He's like, I'm done with this fucking charade. I want everyone to know that Odessa is my wife. Turns out, actually, Ransom and Thora know each other, which is when we knew, yes, she is related to Kathleen in some way. That same white hair is true. So we do also see Golding and Dare leave to try to get Matthias's mother and sister out before Salem realizes that Matthias is dead and like tries to pull the debt in other ways, because Matthias's mother and sister were like on the line basically if the debt was not fulfilled. Correct. Now Matthias is dead, so it's like
not great.
Let's go help them out. So Golding and Dare, romantic runaway, but those boys got it. They'll figure it out. They'll help people.
So on the way to Quintus, Caspia and Andreas travel by ship, and Kos is super bored. Since boarding the ship, she's had 0 visions about Andreas' death, making her believe that she has in fact changed the future. This is also when Andreas mentions a children's book full of myths and legends as a story about a woman who left Calendaria for 100 years, returned with animals, claiming they were gifts from a god more powerful than they ate. Caspia assumes this must mean the divine. When she set these animals free, they turned on her and devoured her. Monsters.
That's
not
good.
Great.
Yeah.
It is referred to as Vengeance from the Six, a story meant to teach children to be devout to the gods who rule over Calendaria because they are the true creators of monsters and power. And that's when Caspia questions if it's really a children's tale. First of all, it does not sound like a children's tale.
No, like, why would you let children read this? This is terrible.
Correct. And then she wonders if other Quintessence felt the rites called Calendaria, shifted like Sandra, and slaughtered everyone. And this leads Caspia finally to tell Andreas what happens when a Starling goes through the rite, how they can shapeshift, and he makes her promise never to shift. And while she explains most of them shift into a swift form and describes it, he kind of like freaks out, panics, because he realizes that's what they call a crux, explaining about how they migrate to Calendaria and kill everything in their path. What a great way to start a love story.
Yeah. Oh, you know that demon monster that flies in from the sky that you guys are terrified of? I turn into those.
Correct.
Great.
I'm not sure when it'll happen. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Hopefully
Love
it's
you.
not mid-sex.
God.
Oopsies.
Whoopsies.
So now we move into part 2 of the book called Discovery. And we are back now in Odessa's point of view. And so they have all stopped for the night. Ransom claims that Jody is in love with Odessa, which she's like, no, he's not. Like, everything about me irritates him. And Ransom's like, yeah, no, he likes you. He's infatuated with you. And he's like, I should know. I share the same affliction. And you're like, oh, hello. Hi. But we're married, so it's okay. So then he also confesses that Thora, or Vale, is also Catherine's niece. There you go. It's a niece. And after Catherine's family died in the last migration, her brother's wife survived and was pregnant, giving birth in Genesis. So when Catherine learned that Vale, aka Thora, was in the Mavens, Ransom's mother offered to pay off her debt, but was refused. She's like, no, I refuse to have you give any money to me. I'm going to pay my debt, not going to take anything from Tara. And Luella told Ransom that if he ever crossed paths with the Mavens, to show mercy to a woman with snow white hair. He's like, you need to be mindful of this person. Do not kill them, please. So now Ransom and Odessa also discuss what happened in Elder, because they're like, what the fuck? Where were you? And Odessa learns that the Crux is dead, but he does not tell her the entire story. Only that he believed the Crux wanted to carry him high enough to drop him, but he drove a sword through her heart instead. Ransom assumes that Brother Dime likely did something to hide their trail to protect Odessa from his father. And she doesn't tell Ransom about the waterfall at this point, because she's just like, Brother Dime warned me about Ransom's loyalty, and again, like, later about, like, my father. Like, I think I should keep this a secret for now. And Odessa does now find out that Xavier was alive when Ransom left. But Ransom's like, I don't know if he survived, but he was barely alive when I left. So we're like, maybe, who knows? And Kathleen was supposed to send word to Quentis, so they should find out when they get there if he is alive or not. So Odessa now is questioning why no one else knows about the Crux Scout, and Ransom doesn't believe his father would keep that a secret from the other kingdoms. But he's like, let's get to the bottom of this. This is weird. We need to find out.
Yeah. So back in Caspia's POV, Andreas takes her to see some paintings showing the Crux and what they do. It completely breaks her heart, especially when she recognizes one of them as Beesans, one of the Swifts that we've seen. He also explains that Voyagers have tried to follow the Crux, but they end up not returning, likely dead. While
Marrow-eels.
Yeah. Well, I was going to assume, or likely dead from the Crux, right?
Yeah.
So while in the castle, Andreas dances around the truth about his father and his position. He does not outright lie. However, he does not admit that he is the prince.
Yeah.
At all. So then they go to the library. We meet Faxon, who agrees to help Caspia find a book for her research and a tutor. Kos, we learn that Andreas' brother Eric was killed a year ago related to a drug addiction, and his parents turned a blind eye to his addiction, even though Andreas begged his father to help him. Arik ended up falling down the stairs and breaking his neck, and that's why Andreas went to Genesis, and the thrum that Caspia has felt since she comes to Calendaria comes back.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Which, that's like a lot to unpack. You're like,
yeah.
Shit. Like, you weren't supposed to be the king, and now you are, and
he was always going to be the king. Arik was the younger brother.
Oh, that's true. He was younger brother.
Yeah.
But still, like, you could have been like, I am going to not take the throne. Maybe my brother will. But no options now. You're stuck.
No.
So now we are back with Odessa. And we have Odessa, Ransom, Evie, Thora, and Jody on a ship headed to Quentis. Woo! Fun times. While they're on the ship, FaZe scratches Ransom because he's pissed because he has to be on a leash and in a cage. Like, he's not happy about it. But green blood comes out, which Jody notices, and he's just like, Odessa, you saw that, right? Like, you gotta be careful. And Odessa's like, shut the fuck up, I know. And then additionally, Odessa tries to give Ransom back his cuff with the map to Allesaria on the back of it, but he refuses to take it, insisting that he trusts her, which is a big, big moment for her, because, like, her father doesn't trust her, and so she's like, oh my god, you trust me with this information? Like, I love you too. And then we start to notice that every time Odessa tells Ransom that she loves him, he never says it back. Or he says
No.
something like, yes, you do, or don't forget. And you're like, fucker, why don't you say I love you? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, that's annoying. Stop it. But then we get a spicy scene and we forget all about it. We're like, yay. But fucking Jody interrupts it. And we're like, you motherfucker. Like, literally, Ransom is like, whoever's at that door right now has a death wish. And Jody's just like, you're going to want to come up here and see this. Because another ship has arrived right next to them. And Brother Dime is on it. Great.
Yay. Great.
Yay.
So, switching back to Caspia's POV, she has another vision of a ship sailing away, leaving Andreas behind. Andreas takes Kos to the castle for tutoring, and Caspia decides to take a walk into the city and find the ship she saw in her vision, asking the captain about his longest journey so far. But when he tells her it was like over 2 months, she's like, that's not long enough to make it back home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Later, another man gives her a paper, and Caspia feels like the man looks at her like they've met before. Right? And then she reads the paper and sees the article about Andreas. Caspia remembers a vision she had on the ship to Calendaria about a woman, Haley, a blonde woman in green blood. We later learn like this is going to be a vision of when Caspia gives birth to Odessa. And then Caspia briefly meets Haley.
So now we're back to Brother Dime showing up on that ship right next to Odessa. He ends up boarding their ship and using his fluid magic to make them go faster, arriving a day earlier than they originally planned in Quentis. Which you're like, well, that's kind of nice. Thank you so much. Interestingly enough, though, Ransom's eyes have been silver since Brother Dime boarded the ship. There appears to be like a fury simmering beneath his skin, which likely has something to do with Brother Dime leaving Odessa and Evie in Brother Score's care, who also ultimately left them alone too. So Ransom's real pissed off. He's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But when Brother Dime is able to finally get Odessa alone, he asks her if she has learned the old language and if she's finished reading the book. And she's like, well, some of the stories in this book are interesting because they're coming true. Like, that's weird, right? And he's like, you're on the right path. Sorry, what? Could you elaborate a little bit more? No. Can't. And that's now the point where we're starting to assume that this journal maybe belonged to her mom and all those stories were actually her visions and now they're coming true. It's like literally like these visions were 25 years ago. This is crazy. So you're like, wow, that journal is very interesting. So now they have arrived at the castle. None of the guards recognize Odessa because again, she now has her red hair, being true to herself, isn't in gray with brown hair. And they're just like, you need to leave, like royalty only. And then Ransom shows up and he's like, motherfucker, is that how you treat the future queen of Tara? And then they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And you're like, yeah, you better be sorry. And then she's taken along with Ransom, Evie, and the Mavens to go and see the king, her daddy, who happens to be holding a party. Fun. Her father is sitting there on his golden throne, but Margot is nowhere to be found. Wonder where she is. And when he first sees Odessa, he starts to smile and like hurry towards her, but then the smile is gone. And he tells everyone to get out. And you're like, what the fuck? You had a moment where you were being nice and fatherly, but of course he was probably picturing his dead wife.
Yep.
So Odessa introduces the Mavens to her father and tells him about how much he owes them for their help. It's like, hey, daddy, I'm back. I paid these people money. And he's just like, fuck, fine. And her father tries to just dismiss her, but she is not the same woman that she used to be before she went to Tara. So she's like, daddy, you're going to listen to me now. Yeah. You're like, oh, shit's about to go down.
And then we see Caspia come back to Andreas' house. She finds him and Kos working on a sketch together. And she knows at this point that she loves him, but she also knows he was never hers to begin with because he's betrothed to someone else. And that's what she saw in the paper. Oops. Apparently, the marriage was arranged by his mother when he was gone this past year. No one, I mean, who wouldn't want to come back and find out that they're going to be engaged to someone that they don't love?
Yeah.
But
fun.
He claims he doesn't love this woman and wants to find a way to void the contract. I'm like, you could have told Caspia, though. Crazy idea.
Hey, this is some news.
Yeah, FYI. The marriage is set up merely for political reasons, and while Caspia knows that she's going to have to leave him, she doesn't want to waste the little time that they have left together arguing, which leads to another spicy scene where they have sex.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, back in Odessa's point of view. She is then shown to a suite in the castle, like the furthest away from everyone. Not her former suite or the ones where visiting royalty stay. It's literally the one in the West End where her dad will usually put guests that he wants to avoid. And you're like, fuck.
Great.
Like, at this point, you feel horrible for Odessa. Like, her dad just continues to treat her poorly. And it's not until we really understand the full story, we have a little bit of sympathy for him. Like, but like, dude, you still should have treated your daughter better. Like, that was just uncalled for, honestly. So Odessa and Ransom discuss once again how it doesn't appear that King Ramsay has sent any word to the other kingdoms about the scout. So that's also when Ransom mentions again that they might have more time, but he doesn't share anything else except the scout's dead, hasn't heard anything else from anyone else. Like, maybe we're fine. Maybe it's not the migration yet. And they briefly discuss Odessa and Evie going back to Tura and Ransom going to Allesaria to stop his father, which doesn't end up happening, of course. They're just like, no, I don't want to be separated from you. I love you. Yay. Because we get a spicy scene where Odessa and Ransom have sex, and you're like, fuck yes, finally.
Finally. So next, Caspia has another vision of Andreas, the little boy, and she knows it can't be hers because Starlings only have girls. The ship that she saw in her vision still hasn't left port, and it's been 11 days, and the thrum in her chest is relentless. Andreas takes Caspia to the library because Faxon found someone who might be able to help her with her research. And when they get to the library, she feels a crawling sensation on her skin, similar to how Odessa feels with the Voster priest. So we know a Voster priest has to be nearby. That's when she also finds Kos with books floating over him, just like in her vision. And Caspia meets Brother Nold, who wears burgundy robes, and she refers to him as this Velvetulfer, whatever. Basically a Voster priest and their language. And when he touches her face, she screams and the world goes black.
The fuck?
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit. Much like how when Odessa touched that water, she just like screamed and went black. Like, so unfortunately, Odessa now does not have a great time either because she awakens to find Evie screaming as May is trying to take Faze away from her. Because she claims, it bit me. And it's like, what do you mean? The animal? It bit you? And she's like, no, Evie. Evie bit me. And I'm like,
good girl.
No? Good. Yeah, I mean, you probably deserved it. So apparently the queen has requested that everyone join her at breakfast immediately. And Odessa finds that all of her old gray wardrobe has been brought to her suite. Which you're like, fuck you, Margot. How dare you?
Yep.
And she like refuses to wear any of it. She's like, I'm not fucking wearing this shit. I'll wear the same pants and stuff I came here in. And now we're at breakfast. And another story from the book happens to come true with her little brother, Arthie, who is outside flying a kite and has a new puppy that he named Titus. Which you're like, oh my God, I've seen this before. And even in that moment, you see Odessa and Evie being like, oh my gosh, it's from the story. It's from the book. And she's like, I know what she's going to name the dog. You're like, whoa. So then General Hawksley shows up, requesting that... Oh, hello, General Hawksley. Requesting that Odessa see the king alone. So when she meets up with her father, he wants an official report on whether she found the road to Allesaria and is not pleased to hear that she has not been there yet. He's like, you failed. You're like, fuck you. Hi, good to see you too, Daddy. And she mentions that the Crux Scout was there and how he needs to warn others to prepare for the migration. But he's like, doesn't really respond to it. And then she mentions the Lyssa infection. And her father is aware of it. He's like, I know, but it's not my problem. Not the problem of Quentis. And she's like, yes, it is. It's here too. Like, what the fuck? And then he asked May, apparently, to deal with Faze. And that's why May was in there. And she's all pissed. Oh my gosh. Odessa is just like, fuck you, Dad. Fuck my sister. This is bullshit. She tries to get him to answer some of her questions and to trust her with the truth. And she's like, do you trust me at all? And he was like, no. He's like, I'll never trust you. Fuck.
Yeah, I know.
Damn. Like, that feels like a dagger in the heart, you know? Like, shit.
There's a lot of them, right? Where the two of them are concerned. Jumping back to the library, Caspia wakes up and Brother Nold claims he didn't do anything. It wasn't me.
I didn't do it.
Didn't do it. Caspia insists that he needs to stay away from her, believing that his magic is making her sick. She also explains to Andreas how the Voster were driven from their homeland a long time ago after the war. The beliefs of the Voster priests didn't align with the Beesan king, and he slaughtered most of them, with the rest going into hiding. Supposedly, the Vosters don't have any powers in Ken, or at least none that Caspia knew about. This leads to Caspia and Brother Nold using a part of the library with like unique acoustics so they can talk without it causing Caspia too much discomfort. Apparently, he has been in Calendaria for over 400 years. He knows she was called there and believes she will shift. We also learn that the Voster came to Calendaria with the help of 3 of the Starling ancestors. 1 came and left, while 2 of them had their lives claimed back by the land, meaning they shifted and could not shift back. Additionally, the Crux didn't migrate to Calendaria before the Voster arrived, meaning something about bringing them there changed the migration patterns. Brother Nold also shares that they can't return to Bisa because it's sworn, but he doesn't seem to answer who it's sworn to or why. And he tells her to leave before it's too late. And then next, if it couldn't be bad enough, she has a vision of her in the form of a swift with dead bodies all around, a man with a sword begging her, saying he loves her. She tries to fight within herself, but the drive to kill overtakes and he dies. And that is the first glimpse of the vision of what happens when she shifts for the first time. And then based on everything she knows, Caspia is like, I have to leave, and tells Andreas. He mentions the ship in the harbor that can take her home and mentions how he wishes he could go with her. I'm like, well, you could just not be king and be fine. And then the next morning, while she goes to the docks, they're preparing to leave, the thrum within her stops. And that's when she sees Andreas running towards the docks, and he asks her to stay with him.
It's like when Ross goes to the airport and says, don't go to Paris. And she's like, I'll get off the plane. So anyway, it's a cute moment. So now we have the third part of our book, which is entitled Dynasty. And we start off in Odessa's point of view. So when Odessa finds Ransom, she wants to leave the next morning to head back to Tara. But they can't because Kathleen and Xavier are sailing to Quintus. That means he's alive. What?
Yep.
And so they're going to have to wait for his arrival. Because Odessa is like, I will not believe that he's alive until I see him with my own eyes. And she also wants some time to work with her father's healers to find a cure for Lyssa. But Ransom believes it's a waste of time. It is what it is. I love you, but no. But Odessa does go down to see the head healer with a vial of Ransom's blood. And she finds the same woman that was in one of the stories. It's Allure, which is the new head healer. She's only been in the capital for a few months, and she was hired to take the place of the previous head healer. And Odessa tells her everything that she knows about Lyssa, including that Ransom has it, and it's the source of the Guardian's special abilities. Odessa also shares how King Ramsay is trying to give Lyssa to his military, but it's killing the men instead. So, we need to, find a cure for this, maybe a little bit. And after she leaves, Brother Dime finds her in the Crux Art Gallery, and he tells her to keep an open mind about the truth, and that it's rarely gentle. And that she should stay because this is where she will find her answers. What?
Yeah. So back to Caspia's POV, Andreas and Caspia stayed locked in this house, basically I assumed fucking nonstop. Andreas is then summoned to a meeting with his father. She goes to the library and begins writing about her homeland, Nelphenex. Faxon also gives her a book called Sonnets 90, which is supposed to be more of a storybook than a history book about Calendaria. And then he asks if him and his husband Gable can adopt Kos, which she agrees to. Later, she gets a paper cut, and her blood is green, which is a surprise because it used to be red when she was in Nelphenex. And I was like, well, that's not great.
Yeah, because now I'm like, but you don't have Lyssa.
Well, Megan, what if it never existed? We're going to talk about it in theories.
I know. So now we're switching to Odessa's point of view. She finds brown hair dye in her bathroom, and you're like, this motherfucker?
I was like, this bitch. Ugh.
So mad. She's like, this feels like an attack by Margot, along with not getting any of the clothes that she requested, only the gray dresses. And it doesn't help that she never receives an invitation to join her family for dinner either. So she's like, you know what? Fuck you guys. She ends up selling her knives because she didn't want to keep them anyway because they had bad memories, to then buy some new clothes, not wanting to ask her daddy for any money. She's like, fuck you, I can take care of myself. Gets herself some new outfits, gets Evie some new outfits. You're like, boom, and my hair's still red. So fuck you. So now they're at, right, yeah. Which I'm like,
hold on. Yeah.
Good job. So now we're at the castle's training center, and we see Gable, the weapons master, for the very first time. And we're like, so now we're starting to get that identity and timeline of Caspia, because now Gable is much older. Whereas with Caspia, he was much younger. And you're like, oh. So Ransom and Evie are there and they're training together while May trains with Brix, who also happens to be her lover. And Ransom, which like, good for you, girl. Fine. Ransom, but I'm like, meanwhile, I'm like, where's Kos? Where's Kos? Or is Brix Kos? You change his name?
No,
probably not. Okay. So Ransom and Odessa end up training together while the others watch them. He's like, you need to stay ready. And this leads Gable to say that he knew Odessa's mother and wondered if there was a piece of her within Odessa. And you're like, and he offers to train her, which is a surprise since he refused to do so when she was younger, literally calling her a lost cause. But then the king shows up and looks very pissed off at Gable, and later like will warn him and be like, fuck no, stay away. You're like, rude.
Yeah. So next, Caspia has finished writing her story and gives the journal to Faxon, asking him to hide it somewhere safe until she knows from a vision that Kos will eventually find it and read it. And that was like a blurry vision that she had. This is the first time we hear about her having some blurry visions. She keeps another journal for herself, which is likely the one that Odessa initially finds. Then the queen shows up at the library wanting to talk to her, specifically the woman who has corrupted her son. I feel like that's a compliment.
Yes, that's me.
So talk about like a great way to meet the future in-laws. Mm-hmm. When Andreas finds out that Caspia met his mother, he assumed she was rude.
Yes.
He also knows that his mother was upset because Andreas has officially nullified the betrothal contract. Then he proposes to Caspia. She says yes. He promises to give her whatever her heart desires, but all she wants besides him is to keep spending time in the library because she wants to know the truth about her mother's disappearance. And I'm like, okay.
Sure. Now I'm wondering, was your mother one of the original like 3 that came over with the buster?
It's possible.
Back in Odessa's point of view, Ransom is having a nightmare. Not good. And Odessa tries to wake him, and she just sees the monster inside of him like staring back at her with his teeth bared, his eyes are like super silver. And she's like, come back to me, coaxing him very gently. His silver eyes start to morph back to hazel greenish, and he feels horrible at what happened. He's like, oh my God. Because apparently this time, the nightmare was about the Crux coming for Odessa in Elder, and he couldn't get to her in time. But Odessa knows it's more than a nightmare because his dark veins from the Lyssa are further away from his heart now than they ever were before. And he's like, I'm going to go sleep on the couch. I don't want to put you in any more danger, but she refuses to let him. However, she does wake up the next morning, and he's not in bed or on the couch. He's nowhere to be seen. And she's like, damn it. Shit. So then Odessa is summoned to the king's study, and she notices there's some changes to the map that she saw when her father shared a ton of information about Tura with her the night she was chosen to be the Sparrow. The map now has notations and lines across Calandra, with X's in red and lines drawn in blue and circles in black, likely a breadcrumb for the searching that Andreas has been doing. However, her father doesn't want to talk about the map. Instead, he's upset that Ransom had an altercation with a guard and broke his arm. And Odessa's like, what? What the fuck?
Yeah.
And she's like, he wouldn't have done that unprovoked. Like, something must have happened. And her dad's just like, get his shit together. You're like, fine. Yeah. And then he tells Odessa, by the way, stay away from Gable. And Odessa asks her father to tell her about her mother, and she asks him about the rumor that he killed her. And all of his emotions just disappear. And he just like becomes like a ghost of a human again. And he goes back to work. And he's like, that's all. You're dismissed. And you're like, oh, fuck. But before that happens, she's like, Why can't I feel the Voster magic? And he's just like, stay away from them. And she leaves. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck.
So when we're back in Caspia's POV, she asks Faxon about the possibility that Sonnets 90 is actually about Calendaria's history, especially since there doesn't seem to be any history from before the first migration. And he ponders that maybe the history books were lost in the past due to like the destructive migrations. And then Caspia wonders, were they actually destroyed? So then another Voster priest comes in the library wearing blue robes, and Caspia feels his magic until the priest controls it. He gives her a book in the old language that says, "For the Starling" inside. Dun dun dun.
What? You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because now we know that Caspia is writing a book, right?
Correct. She's written two. Yeah.
Written two. So somebody else wrote another book for the Starling.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, who the fuck did that? Was it her mother? Who was it? So you're like, oh shit. So now we switch to Odessa's point of view. Like they hit you with that banger and then they switch back and you're like, God damn it.
There's a lot of that.
You're like, God damn it, Devney Perry, how dare you? Yes, I will keep reading though, but I'm very upset about this. It worked well.
Yeah.
So now we're switched to Odessa's point of view. She is sitting in the Crux art gallery and Margot comes in, very surprised to see her. She's like, oh, I didn't see you there. What are you doing here? And she comments on how Odessa has changed due to Ransom's influence. And literally, Odessa's like, no, I haven't changed. You just never saw me, so fuck you. But then we also learn a little bit about how Margot's mother actually worked as a washerwoman in the castle. So Margot grew up around the palace, and her mother was later killed by a looter during the migration. And afterwards, Margot took her mother's place in the washroom and then was later promoted to a lady's maid. Margot confesses that she is now married to a man in love with a ghost, and how Odessa's mom took a piece of his soul with her when she died. She claims Odessa's father doesn't mean to hurt his daughter, but just sees her as a reminder of what he lost. And at this moment, you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel really bad, like for Margot and for the dad. And then we see General Hawksley come around the corner. And he's just like, oh, there you are, darling, to Margot. And then he's just like, oh, I mean, oh, who are you? Who's this? Yeah. And Odessa's just like, I won't say anything. You got it. Your husband's in love with a ghost. Like, go find love. Whatever.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, Caspia is trying to learn the Quintus etiquette. She doesn't want to embarrass Andreas, but he's like, I don't care what anyone thinks about you. Which leads to Caspia getting her own, like, corral. Basically, her own little, like, small room in the library.
Room. Yeah.
Yeah. So she can have a private place to conduct her research. And Caspia insists on Andreas sending a message to the Voster Brotherhood because she wants to speak to the priest who gave her the book. Because from what she's read so far, the book is an account of evil magicians, but it reads like a novel. So she feels like it's a history book. Originally, the magicians were ordinary men of a religion who worshipped Calendaria spirits. They lived in a monastery deep in the mountains. Maybe at Allesaria?
That's what I'm thinking.
Right? And then during a harsh winter, the men were starving and begged for help from their spirits. No one came. Only 6 survived. Then the men began worshipping demons, who reveled in lost and angry souls. They made bargains with them for magic and immortality if their bodies were used as hosts. Possessed by these demons, the men became magicians and fooled people into believing their power was a gift to save humanity, and all of Calendaria bowed at their feet. And I was like,
well, shit.
Well, shit. There's that.
Mm-hmm. There's... Mm-hmm.
There.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a history book. I think this is true.
Yeah. This does not sound great.
I think you're all about to be really, really fucked.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Correct.
Mm. So now we are back in Odessa's point of view, naturally. And she and Ransom are headed to the healer Alore's workshop, where she has been able to recreate Luella's elixir. Huh. But she needs to recreate the infection because she can't find a cure without replicating the infection, which, okay, sure, makes sense. And she basically, as a result, asks Ransom to spit, since it's believed that Lyssa traveled by bite. She's like, your blood's not working. Let's try spit.
Yeah.
And she's like, I also got some of Faye's saliva to test as well, which Odessa's like, what? And she's like, don't worry. He's unharmed. He's fine. And it's funny because then she's like a little scientist and she's got like all these little rats and she's like trying all these different things. And I'm like, let's not give a rat Lyssa and then let it like travel throughout the castle.
The palace, right.
Like the plague, like the Black Plague, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I hope they don't break those cages. So then next, Odessa heads to the training center and Gable ignores her thanks to her meddling father. Very sad. He just gives her a look and she's like, damn it. What's more surprising now, May is in there training with Evie. Oh, but they're not using the training wooden daggers that you would use for a child. No, they're using actual daggers, which literally Odessa's like, what the fuck? And Faze is chained to a wall with a metal collar around his neck that is way too small for his throat. Just like mean. Like, I'm going to go stab May in the fucking throat. So May apparently ends up slicing Evie's shirt, which is the very same one from Elder, which makes Evie furious and sad. And it's just like, my shirt. And May's like, you can get another one. Like, May has no idea. No. And May then tries to get Odessa to fight her. She's like, come on, little big sis. Like, let's go. But she refuses. And then May throws a knife at Ransom, but he just catches it midair. And that's when May says she was supposed to be the sparrow and the one to leave. And she just takes off. And you're like, what the fuck? But then as Odessa goes up to Ransom, he's just like, you need to leave with Evie right now. He's like, I do not trust myself. Like, if you weren't here, I would have absolutely ripped your sister's head off. Which I'm like, she kind of deserved it. So, yeah. But Odessa's
no
like,
complaints.
No. Yeah, right? But Odessa's like, no, I'm not leaving you. I trust you. I love you. Don't forget.
Like, right. Oh. So when Caspia is at the library working in her little study room, the Voster who gave her the book shows up and calls her Starling. And she can't feel his magic as strongly as before because he's channeling it inside so it won't hurt her. And he warns her to never send another message. And we learn a ton. So he worships the divine like Caspia, claiming the eight are a myth made real by time and magic. Most of the other Voster worship the eight, but there are some who have learned the grace of the divine and question the histories they were told. He alludes to not being able to tell her certain things because of a blood oath, which is like finally, right, we're convinced that that's happening.
Yeah.
The written history of Calendaria does exist, but it's hidden away from the eyes of humanity, which is what I think is in Allesaria. Caspia believes the land in Calendaria is cursed and the magicians did something to it. It's why humans have starbursts in their eyes. It gives the Vosters magic and it causes the Starling to lose control over their bloodline's gifts. There is something fundamentally wrong with Calendaria.
Yes.
And we find out that he previously lived in Kent, had a wife and 3 daughters. The Beesans killed his family in the war, and he would return to Kent if he could break the ties binding him to this land. So we still don't know who created the ties or why. But no Voster has ever been born in Calendaria, which means they all were here for 400 years.
Yeah.
And he won't answer if there's a way to heal Calendaria or stop the migrations. He does know Brother Noel, but won't answer whether the robe color distinction is important or not, which we learned later it is. He promises they will speak again before it's her time and to hide her truths and tell no one that they've met. He says she can call him Hain, but not Brother Hain, just Hain.
Which is very interesting.
Correct, because he is the first Keenan priest that we've met.
So back to Odessa's world and her timeline. Once they are alone, Ransom admits to Odessa that he's losing control, and he would have absolutely killed May if she had like done anything to hurt Evie or to hurt Odessa. He's just like, I would have killed her. Would be gone. And he's worried about that. He's like, what happens if he's not strong enough to fight it and just doesn't seem to be hopeful at all about a cure? He's like, this is just like a terrible situation. And he makes Odessa promise to tell Evie about Luella if something happens to him. And once again, then Odessa says, I love you, but he doesn't say it back. And you're like,
I was getting really angry at him at this point.
I know. I was like, come on, Han Solo. I know.
Yeah.
Like, just like, stop. Did you get that reference?
No.
Oh, damn, Star Wars.
Did you like how I nodded like I did? Like I knew what you were saying.
Yeah. Leia goes, I love you. And Hans goes, I know. Rude.
Okay.
Very much Odessa and Ransom here. But we do get a nice little spicy scene where Ransom goes down on Odessa and they have sex, and you're like, yeah, it was worth it, but still say you love me back, because that's rude. You're not a fuckboy. You are my husband.
Correct. So then, as Caspia continues her research, she questions if the ancient battle story in the Sonnets 90 is about the evil magician or the Six, and if the Pythoness might not have been the villain after all, but maybe was fighting against their magic. And that's when Haynes shows up. He's pale white. He looks sickly, claiming not to have very long, and we learn even more. The evil magicians took power from the infernal demons and became the Six, cursing the land. Hayne refers to this as Caspia's story, making us wonder if the Pythoness was someone in her bloodline, right? Because she is a Starling. And I was like, is it possible that was her mother? But the time is kind of a little bit, I don't think so based on like how much time has passed, but
yeah, it's like 400 years. Like,
I don't,
unless they age differently.
Which we don't know technically.
Yeah.
He also knows that she came to Calendaria to avenge her sister and go through the rites, but that's not something she previously told him. He mentioned he was right to choose her, which feels like another important breadcrumb. Due to the oath between the Brotherhood, she must ask him the right questions. It's the only way he can answer her because he can't speak the words himself. The magicians lost the battle against the Starling, were burned, and their remains were sealed. This is the first we learn of, like, the orbits. And although the magicians were destroyed, the magic wasn't for some reason, and it became part of Calendaria. And magic is poison to the Starling and the Swift. The Starling fled Calendaria to save themselves and the people. So the Starling used to live in this land. They didn't live in Elfenex, right? Which is crazy. That was like one of the things that really surprised me in the story.
I had to reread that part a couple times. I was like, wait,
what?
Okay.
Yeah. Hayne doesn't know why the Starling didn't destroy the orbits, but if they are destroyed, then the magic should cease. If she can find them and destroy them, it should fundamentally alter Calendaria. He warns there will be many who oppose her, kings who rely on blood oaths and treaties, as well as the Brotherhood who won't want to give up power. He assures her that Brother Nold is not a threat, but she should trust no one else.
Whoa. But you're just like, I feel like just major like bomb dropped right there.
Yes.
Like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
What is happening now? Yeah. But we can't process any of that because now we have to go back in Odessa's point of view, of course. She actually overhears an argument between Margot and her father, with Margot threatening the king that he needs to tell her or she will. And you're like, what? And the king is also very much aware of Margot's affair with the general, and he's just like, I don't complain about where you sleep at night, like, so fuck off. Initially, Odessa assumes this argument's about her. But when she confronts Margot and is like, what does my father need to tell me? Margot's just like, you always think everything's about you. What makes you think you? So she's like, it's about May. And you're like, oh. So then Odessa goes to see her father, asking to speak with Brother Dime, but her father refuses to contact him for her. He also admits to not trusting Ransom, which we're not surprised by that at all. So then she leaves her father. She catches a glimpse of Brother Score's robes and chases after him. She's like, that motherfucker, where'd he go? She can't find him anywhere. He's like literally disappeared. Evie is screaming and finds out that Ransom hit a guard who was trying to take Faze. And in fact, the guard was luring Faze away with a big hunk of meat. And that's when Odessa starts to wonder, are the guards trying to run them out of Quintus? Because, like, I never had any type of issues like this before. Like, what the fuck? And then Odessa sees Brother Score, and Ransom has a very strong reaction to him because he's like, that's Brother Score? That motherfucker is Kennen, which is a fraction of the Zealots, a traitor to the Brotherhood, and anyone found associating with the Kennen is put to death by the high priest. So he's like, you need to stay away from him. What the fuck? He's like, Brother Dime is probably in on it too. Which Odessa's like, wait, what? What?
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So back in Caspia's POV, she has another vision of Hayne on an ocean cliffside wearing pale blue robes. Black blood drips from his nose. His face is gaunt and hollow. He whispers a prayer in Elfenex. By the grace of the divine, guide them home. By the grace of the divine welcome me to glory, and then grant the starlings the strength to do what I could not. A blade cuts through the air, chopping off his head. She assumes that he is referencing her and Xandra as the starlings that need to be guided home. That's when Caspia tells Andreas she's going to find the orbits and destroys them. And although this idea terrifies Andreas, as it should, he agrees to do it as long as they do it his way. And she starts to question if the Starling would have chosen similar burial locations for the orbits as they did back in Elphanex, which is why she wants to go to the bottom of the Yvonne ravine. Andreas also mentions other similar places, such as the waterfall in Ozarth, which we've already seen, which is where Odessa went, the Grent Mine and Lane, the cliffs on the eastern shore of Genesis, which sounds vaguely familiar to where Xandra and Caspia were when they first arrived in Calendaria and became very sick. So they get this entourage to travel to the Yvonne Ravine, along with Sean Hay, who we assume, right, is an ancestor of Samuel Hay that we met in Shield of Sparrows, who shows up towards the end of the book, too, with his son Jonas. Suddenly, a rider comes screaming down the road about a lionwick. Andreas gets injured by one, but he doesn't die. Caspia makes a comment about how she can move at a speed that is not her own, similar to how we see Ransom move. She also realizes the lionwick attacked for bloodlust, not food, and that the lionwick came straight for her.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We will get into it. So now we are back with Odessa and Ransom alone, and he shares how the Kennen wear blue robes. But before the Shield of Sparrows treaty, there was a war between the Brotherhood, one that few know even happened and even fewer speak of. Ransom only knows this because his father thought it was important for him to know of the Kennen because of Tara's allegiance to the Voster. So according to Ransom, the Kennen believe they should rule all 5 kingdoms. Basically, anyone with magic should be in power. Ransom is worried that if the high priest finds out about her father working with Kennen, then the Voster will act and her father will die. He doesn't want her there when that happens, clearly. And this leads Odessa to tell Ransom about helping Brother Score retrieve something from behind a waterfall. And Ransom's just like, we need to send a message to the high priest about all of this. Like, he needs to know. And at this moment, I'm like, wait, no. Don't do that.
I was like screaming at the book, no.
And then Odessa gets a message to meet with May and decides to take Faze with her. Because she's like, you know what? He needs to go potty in the gardens. He'll help protect me from May. I'll be fine. I'm going to go see my sister. But while she's in the gardens, 6 guards show up because they are expecting Ransom. But they're like, whatever, you'll do. And they want to take Faze. And they start like trying to fight her. And then May shows up and hits a guard in the nose. And Odessa and May fight the guards. And then Ransom shows up and loses his shit on the guards. Like, killing a ton of them. Like, and at one point, he was busting in the face of one of them into the ground. Like,
yeah,
there was no skull anymore. It was just splat. And once he's done, he like looks and he's like, oh my God, I took it too far. Yeah. I took it a bit too far. Horrified by his actions, just takes off, leaving Odessa with May, who questions now, are you sure Ransom isn't the vicious one and all this stuff? And Odessa's like, not usually, but that was a bit too far.
Interesting. Yeah. So then Caspia and crew descend into the Yvonne Ravine. She starts to feel the pain of the magic at the bottom. She follows that pain to determine which way to go. And then Seth Hayes' body drops on the rocks beside them, thanks to a giant bat.
Oops.
Yep. Oops. So they have to put out their torches. Since these monsters are mostly blind and they use chirps to find their victims, at the end of the tunnel, she ends up, it looks like a dead end, but she can't stop staring at a wall. She finally sees a small gap disguised by the dark. They get through it. They find a smooth, colorless waterfall, ultimately a glass orbit in the bottom of the pool. Andreas gets it out for her and she blacks out. We've seen this before.
We've seen this before. Yes. Now, back in Odessa's point of view, Ransom has not come back since the attack. Yeah, probably.
I understand.
Yeah. However, Kathleen, Xavier, Samuel Hay, and his son Jonas have arrived. Odessa gets them quickly up to speed on what's happened. And obviously also, like, Evie, sees her dad and is, like, emotionally distraught. Like, oh my God, you're alive. Love it. But she's like, let me get you up to speed on what's going on, little Miss Odessa. But then May bursts into the room and tells her to go to the throne room immediately because there is a rumor that the king, their daddy, has arrested Ransom and locked him in the barracks. And you're like, God damn it. So then Odessa tells everyone to pack because they're going to head back to Tara, and May insists on coming with her because she refuses to stay with Odessa's father any longer. She's like, fuck our dad. Because the truth comes out now that May knows who her birth father really is, even though no one will admit it. It's like, yeah, no,
Yep.
The king is not really my daddy. But Odessa is still like, I don't care. You're still my sister. Like,
Even though you've been a bitch to me.
Yeah, I mean, that part should probably change, but
Well,
just saying. So Odessa then goes to see her father, and he admits to arresting and detaining Ransom. He also claims it's because Ransom killed General Banner. But Odessa retorts that, no, I'm actually the one who killed him. That was me. He attacked me. I killed him. He's like, what? No, you didn't. He's like, well, I plan on exiling Ransom from Quentis, and once he's banished, you will remain because it's for your own good. And he asks Odessa to trust him, but she's like, oh, like you trust me? No, I refuse. I will never trust you. And so now we're at the barracks. Odessa goes to see Ransom, and he asks her to leave. He does make a comment about of all the women in the realm. So I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? How much he might know about Odessa's lineage that he hasn't shared. Because I'm like, I just still feel like Ransom knows so much more that he's not telling.
I agree.
But then Brother Score shows up and siphons some of the Lyssa from Ransom's blood to help him, like, feel better. Which you're like, well, that's good at least.
So next, Caspia has another vision about 4 Vosters wearing burgundy robes, and they seem to be hunting. Andreas throws a blade at one of them, but the wind bats it away. And that's when she realizes they can't win, not as we are, which is our first breadcrumb that she will shapeshift when this scene happens in the future. Meanwhile, Andreas has hid the orbit in the family vault, and she can't feel its magic. He doesn't want her to go after the other orbits, and surprisingly, she agrees. She also tells him about the visions of the Vosters coming from them, and then we learn that she's pregnant.
Dun, dun, dun.
Duh.
And we know it's going to be a girl. Because we're like, yeah, clearly you are Odessa's mother. Duh. I know this. So now after Brother Score leaves the barracks, Ransom finally tells Odessa about the crux and how its body shifted into a woman after it died and had red hair. He's like, I don't think it was a scout, Odessa. It looked just like you. And he now tells her he thinks that she might have come here looking for someone. And then he also mentions her blood was green. Her body was burned, though, so that no one else would know about it. No one would find it. But that's when Margot shows up in the barracks and tells Odessa that she's sorry and that she only wanted to protect her, basically by, like, making her change her hair and, like, wear gray dresses. It was all to keep her safe so that Margot could keep her vow. It's like, what do you mean, keep your vow? Like, what? And then Margot gives Odessa a book about her dynasty and then tells her to go see her father in the throne room once she's done. And you're like, Margot, look at you. Look at you stepping up. About damn time.
So back in Caspia's POV, she has another vision of Emery and her aunt arguing about Emery going to look for Xandria and Caspia. Turns out she was taken captive by the Beesans. Her blood was used for experiments, while the love of her life was tortured. They also took her child and used it against her. This is when we learn it's been 24 years since Xandria and Caspia left following a vision of Emery's death, and her aunt now believes all of Caspia's visions. Mm-hmm. We learn that Caspia and Andreas have a daughter, and Margot works as the lady's maid and is clearly in love with him. We also learn that she had a previous vision of her mother coming to Calendaria and being killed by a Voster priest. And the thrum is back. It returned hours after Odessa was born. And then they're alerted that 4 Voster priests are in the throne room wanting to speak with both of them immediately. Andreas goes to see them, while Caspia hides the necklace in the hidden compartment, knowing that one day it will call to her daughter. She makes Margot swear to protect Odessa and gives her the journal, and says to give Odessa the journal one day when the time is right, and not to let Andreas with her. Then Caspia goes to the throne room, telling the soldiers not to enter no matter what they hear. She can feel the pain of her body getting ready to shift. The Voster priests hear the sounds of a baby crying, and then Caspia. Sorry, I like bawled during this whole part.
It was very sad.
It was very sad. Caspia completes her righteous and shifts, killing the Voster priest. Afterwards, Andreas pleads with her to fight, but the bloodlust is too strong, and he ends up killing her just as she asked him to do. And then we get Andreas's POV. It's 2 days later. He hasn't left the throne room or Caspia's body. It's like so heartbreaking.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't cry, but I was
I
very
bawled.
sad. I was just like, sad. I have no heart. Just kidding. When it's animals, I cry. So now we are back in Odessa's point of view. She goes to see her father because she's finally read this and she's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And they finally have an honest conversation. I'm like, about goddamn time.
Right.
He never told her any of this because he wanted to protect her. He knows that she would sacrifice her own life if it meant protecting the realm. And he can't lose her too. She's too much like her mother. And then he tells her everything. How General Hawksley has actually been helping the Kennons search for the orbits. The Kennan feared the high priest would retaliate, so they offered Hain to take the fall for the death of the 4 foster priests. And we also learned that Brother Score brought her father the orbit from the Orson Canyon. And while Hawksley and Score have searched for the other 4 orbits, they have not been able to find them because the magic only calls to a Starling. And Allesaria is believed to hold the Voster's sanctuary and potentially an orbit. Her father asked her to kill Ransom originally because he thought he might have come from another realm and was likely the silver-eyed warrior in her mother's vision, which, right, we'll see. And then he gives her veil falter rings that belong to her mother, and then he gives her the keys to Ransom's cell. You're like, oh, Daddy. So the next morning, Odessa goes to see Alora and asks her to test the elixir with a vial of spit. Her spit. She's like, I'm a Starling. Let's see if this works. Then Thora and Jody show up at the castle because her father reached out to them 5 days ago with an offer that they couldn't refuse. It's like, you got to keep my daughter alive on all of her journeys, and I'll pay you handsomely. They're like, okay, sure. And then we see Odessa go to the library, and Faxon calls her Caspia. And you're like, oh, I knew it. And then Cos shows up, and you're like, oh, which I'm like, yeah, no, I know he was still Cos. It's fine. But then Cos goes to get a book that he found a long, long time ago that her mother had wrote and gives it to Odessa. And I just got chills. Ooh.
I know, right? So then Brother Score shows up, and we find out that Caspia knew him as Brother Noel while he still wore like the red or burgundy robes. She learns that because she was born on this continent and her father is Kalandarian, that's why her blood is red and she can't move as fast. He also seems to confirm that monsters follow her because the Starling will always have a special bond with beasts. Thankfully, it does not appear that Ransom will shift. And Odessa then believes that Ransom was likely bitten by Xandria. Brother Score doesn't believe it's possible to cure Lyssa if the magic in Kalandaria still remains, and even if they destroy the orbits, it still may not cure it. And then we learn that when Brother Score told her earlier in the book to find a warrior, he meant her, Odessa, all along. Finally, Ransom tells Odessa he loves her about fucking damn time.
Seriously.
But then she feels a thrum, and it's there 1 minute, gone the next. And then we get another vision of a silver-eyed warrior who whispers, "My queen," before he dies. And the book ends, and I was like, okay. I think the thing that's nice is, like book 1, there's not a big cliffhanger at book 2. Like like you know the story's going to continue, but it's not like you end on this like, oh my god, will someone survive? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we know that like, with visions, it can change.
Correct. We've seen that change, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's theorize. First, I would like to take a moment to point out how many of our theories from the Shield of Sparrows episode turned out to be right in this book. I just feel like, well done. Okay, should we be concerned that Ransom is loyal to the High Priest? Yes. Why are they not freaking out that they sent a letter to the High Priest that tells him how Odessa went with Brother Score to retrieve something from behind a waterfall? They now know everything about her heritage, the orbits. They should be terrified about the high priest coming for her. And I'm like, does this slip their mind after they learn everything? Or is Ransom like, no, it'll be fine. I trust the high priest. I want to believe he's a good guy and would never let anything happen to her, which means he sides with her in any issue involving the high priest. That's what I want to believe. We're going to talk about a really fucked up theory that I have later.
Can't wait. But first, how many Voster priests are there? Because no one really seems to know. Like, originally we believed, like, there was just the high priest plus, like, little Voster priests assigned as, like, as emissaries for every kingdom. But now we know that there are the Kenan priests who are not a part of the Brotherhood anymore, as well as just, like, Voster priests. So we're like, okay, there's a lot of people here now. Like, we know that all of them came over from Beesan, and no one new has really come.
So what would happen if King Ramsay and the high priest found out about Odessa's true heritage? Well, if the high priest finds out, he's going to kill her, no questions asked.
It's not going to be good.
It's not going to be good. Odessa and any other Starling are a huge threat to his power and control over Calendaria. How King Ramsay would react is a more complicated answer, and that depends on whether or not you believe he truly supports the high priest and knows the real truth about the history of Calendaria. If so, he would likely side with the high priest and want to protect his power. However, if he is playing both sides and he's the only one to know about Odessa's heritage, it's possible he would keep it secret to protect her until he needs to reveal it as part of his bigger plan.
Yeah, I'm wondering that too. I'm like, But also, now we need to know, why is King Ramsay burning books? So as we mentioned in our episode on Shield of Sparrows, this feels very Fahrenheit 451 because we've seen him burn down the entire library in that book, like when they were in the trees, and just like, what the fuck? So we also learned from Caspia's point of view that there is no history books on Calandra until the first migration. So you gotta believe the burning of the books is all about controlling the information, but for two potentially different reasons. First, the high priest, and obviously all those who support him, do not want any history that contradicts their control to exist. But then second, King Ramsay wants to control information about Lyssa because potentially he doesn't want other kingdoms to get it and weaponize it as he wants to do with his soldiers. So is he protecting his son, or is he secretly looking for a cure? Don't know about that, but there's definitely two reasons there potentially why there are no more books in a lot of places.
Correct. So will the Starling seek retribution against Ransom for Emery's death? We know that they typically do when one of them are killed. It's the very reason why Caspia felt inclined to avenge Emery's death, even though it ended up being a vision of the future.
Yeah.
However, we don't feel like her aunt would necessarily be okay with anyone else traveling there to avenge Emery's death. Her family has already suffered significantly. We can't imagine she'd risk more. With that said, we do think it's possible that more Starling will show up again in Calendaria as part of either the upcoming migration or because of this power struggle that appears to be brewing between Nelphanex and Beesan. Because I don't think her aunt is going to tolerate the fact that Emery was tortured and by Beesan.
Nope. I'm going to be very, very pissed about that.
Correct.
What also happened to Caspia's mother? So we know... No. I'm also like, I don't know if I believe these bodies. I don't know. She apparently was killed by a Voster priest because Caspia had that vision. But unlike some of her other visions, we don't get many details about this one. So I'm like, Devney Perry, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? Like, is there more in there? Is it possible that Caspia's mom found one of the other orbits? Or at least was trying to look for them, and like that's why she was killed? Is she actually dead? Or did she
being held captive?
She being held captive? Or did she shift? Like maybe now she's an Alagask or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or what if she's Faye's mom? That's why Faye likes Odessa.
Odessa, I don't know. It's possible. Okay, so did Luella actually create Lyssa? From what we're told in Shield of Sparrows, she was trying to create a medicine that would prevent her family from getting sick during the migration. However, Ransom being injected with this elixir, then being bit by the beowulf, who happens to be Xandria, caused the chain reaction that we're told is Lyssa, which gives him superhuman strength, green blood. However, we also know that Caspia has green blood and felt stronger and faster in Calendaria. And there are countless monsters that behave the same way before she ever created it. So, did she actually create it? Or is it merely she thought she did? Because whenever someone is bitten by a starling, trapped in their shifted form, this is what happens. Are the monsters with green blood actually all starlings? I don't think Lyssa is real.
Oh shit.
I think that's why her father says he doesn't need to worry about it. Because it's not a real thing.
Oh my God. You just blew my mind.
You're welcome.
Holy shit. Are they all starlings? Because they used to be there. And now they're...
And we know they come, they feel called, and they migrate. What if they get there and they can't leave, Megan?
Yeah. God damn it. God damn. My mind's blown. Okay. Well, I need to sit on that for a bit. Did not see that one coming, Steph. Good job. Kudos to you. Good. Okay, well, let's go to this one then. How was Thora able to hear Odessa's inner thoughts? Because again, she did not talk out loud when she was like, if you get there in time. There's more to Thora and her abilities than we've been told. She also has a very strong hatred of the Voster priests without giving any real reason other than like, yeah, we don't like them. But I'm like, have you been tangled up with them before? Does she have a magic that lets her read minds? Is she from somewhere else? Somewhere where they have white hair?
Is it possible that she is the
daughter of a Voster?
We know that she is Catelyn's niece, right? And supposedly the child of her brother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
Which we would assume is not a Voster priest. Assuming that, unless her mom had an affair, based on like kind of what we've been told. But it just makes me wonder. Okay, speaking of things that make me wonder, let's talk about Evie. This is going to be slightly unhinged, but we think there's more to Evie than we've been told. Her eyes are gray. There is no kingdom that has gray eyes. Additionally, Odessa continues to refer to her as Little Star, which is a really sweet nickname, but it also reminds me of Starling, making me ponder, and this is before Odessa knows she's a Starling, if there's something different about Ransom and Evie.
I need answers now. Also, speaking of answers, where are those other 4 orbits? Because based on what we're told, Andreas has 2 now, but the other 4 are still hidden somewhere in Calandra. We're given clues as to where they might be, such as like the cave where Caspia and Andreas had stayed when they first arrived. But like, what if more of them have been found already? Like Ramsay's already found some.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we think that there's definitely one right there in Allesaria. Like, but also how can we know for sure that other Starlings, such as Caspia's mother, who maybe came to Calandra, did locate some, and they're being held by the high priest? Is there just one in Allesaria that no one knows about? And again, why is King Ramsay now outline maps in Tara? Or like, is that to be protective over the city or to be protective of the orbits?
Right? He has to know more about it. Okay.
There has to be one there, I feel like.
Well, I think there's at least one there. My question is, are the other 4 there?
Mm-hmm.
So why was Ransom drawn to Odessa? Does he know more than he lets on? One possibility that he was initially drawn to her because the Lyssa, basically being bitten by Xandria, has created a connection between him and her Starling ancestry like it does for like a monster, right? We know that monsters in Calendaria are drawn to her, especially ones with green blood, which makes us question if he has that similar pull. Another potential theory, which we suggested when we read Shield of Sparrows, is that they're a fated mate connection, which could be true because we do see that Starlings only give their heart away once. Now, in terms of what Ransom knows about Odessa's heritage, we're theorizing he's not being fully honest with her. He mentions how more than once, how out of all the women in Calendaria, it had to be her. If he didn't know anything about her Starling heritage and just thought she was just a regular princess, it wouldn't make sense for him to say that type of line until after he learns about the history at the end of the book. While it's possible he didn't know she was a Starling when he first met her, he, I think, figured it out sometime in the Shield of Sparrows. It would also explain why he keeps saying Allesaria is dangerous for her and does not want her to go there.
Yep. I think he knew. I think he
totally knew too. I think he knew before the cracks showed up.
Yep. And that just kind of confirmed it for him. He's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Of all the women. You. Damn it. Now, speaking of Ransom, why don't we get more chapters in his point of view? 2 theories. First, the story is really Odessa's to tell, since it involves her family and her heritage and everything. Doesn't require a whole lot of Ransom's point of view. That's the most obvious answer based on what we learned in this book. Second one could be a bit crazier. Stephanie's favorites. We don't get his point of view because there are things he's doing or thinking that Devney Perry does not want us to know yet.
I think it's
like the fact that he knew perhaps
certain things.
Starling earlier.
Yep.
It's like he can't give that away.
He can't tell us why she can't get Allesaria yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe he has a blood oath, and that's what he can't tell even the readers.
Well, he does. We know that he has a blood oath, and he can't. But
I mean, to the readers.
Oh,
it's that strong of a blood oath.
Blood oath
that people elsewhere can't.
I can't even think the thoughts.
Can't even think it. Yeah.
Okay, so will Odessa start having visions like her mother? It's very possible, considering we know her mother had visions and her grandmother was considered a dreamer, which also could allude to her having visions, or potentially that she dreamt of a more peaceful world and wanted to try and heal Calendaria. But let's assume that both her mother and grandmother had visions. Then it would make sense for Odessa to inherit a similar trait. We know there's a vision at the end of the book, but it's not clear if that vision is coming from Caspia's notebook or a vision that Odessa has. We're led to believe it's from the notebook, right? Because Odessa has an inner thought about how the Thrum would return if visions in her mother's green journal came true. However, we think it's very possible that Odessa has having visions of her own, like either has or will, that'll start occurring in the next book.
And are these visions perhaps a precursor to shifting?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So in that sense, will Odessa end up shifting and completing her ritus? So that cliffhanger again at the end of the book makes it seem likely because, again, we're led to assume that Ransom is the silver-eyed warrior and that Odessa has then shifted into a swift form based on the wings. So I'm thinking she does end up shifting. But this vision doesn't fully come true. So instead, maybe she's stronger enough to shift back into her human-like form, unlike her previous ancestors were able to do, and doesn't kill Ransom. Because even though they're visions of the future, it doesn't mean they're actually going to come true. You can change the future.
And we've seen her change parts of the visions. So
what if the cure for Lyssa helps her to shift back?
I think the cure is destroying the 4 orbits because I don't think it's an actual thing. That has to be. I think they have to cure the land.
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay. Is Odessa pregnant? Yeah, I think so. So let me explain why. Okay, so the Thrum for Caspia was absent while she was pregnant with Odessa. It also seemed to disappear once she first came to Calendaria, then restarted in Quintus, and it stopped again when she's preparing to leave on this ship. But she also mentions that it wasn't 100% sure when it stopped the second time because she was overcome with emotion about the prospect of leaving, which leads us to believe that Caspia was pregnant around that time of her plan to leave on the ship, and that's why the Thrum stopped. What if Odessa's Thrum tried to start but ultimately stopped because she's pregnant? And is it possible that Odessa has experienced the Thrum before but didn't realize what it was until now? Because if you don't know about the Thrum, right, that tingling sensation, that pull, you're not going to think it's anything specific, right?
You're just like, it's not a Voster. I don't know what that is.
Correct.
What are the Beesans trying to get from the Starling? Good question. So these Beesans are assholes, and they want power. And they used Emery's blood for experiments. Could they potentially be trying to find a way to not only gain control over Nelphenix, but now also Calandra? I think so. I think they just want to take over the world. No big deal. Now, will the Kennen Vosters get back to their homeland? I think so. I think they could.
Yeah.
I think Odessa is going to be able to heal the land and break whatever bond it was that was keeping the Cannon Fosters bound to the land. And they'll be able to go back, hopefully. Will there be any other Fosters there waiting for them? That's a good question.
I don't think so, because they've been all exiled, right? Or killed, but...
Yeah.
Okay. What's important about the prologue? So on the surface, it seems like we're merely learning about the Shield of Sparrows treaty, how it came about, which is like interesting information since that's how like Odessa and Ransom got started. However, we're theorizing it carries a lot more significance. So buckle up. The first sparrow is actually a princess from Tara, making her part of Ransom's lineage. Second, her father, the king, comments on how only humans have the power to make gods insignificant. They both agree to never worship the gods or trust the Vosters. That contradicts everything we've been told about King Ramsay and how he protects the Voster Brotherhood. Which means either one, something significant changed during this time period, right? Or King Ramsay's support of the High Priest is all a ruse. And it's been designed to keep his enemies close, which is what I think is going on.
Yep, I think so. So now how will this all end? Well, I think Odessa is going to be a badass bitch, and she's going to be the queen of both Calandra and Nelphenix, uniting all the lands. And she's going to have a baby. And
live happily ever after, because we get a happily ever after. We will accept nothing less.
We need this. We need this.
Correct.
And I would love it if Freya could come back. I don't think she will.
I think she's dead.
Yeah, she's dead. Boom.
All right. Hot and steamy, 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt very PG-13-ish.
Yes. Like you could watch it on TV and be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 23, Caspia and Andreas have sex. This is the first time, but it's the first time we read about it. He says some like really, it's weird now knowing that like Andreas is her father, but like before.
It's so weird to be like, ooh, that's mommy and daddy. Yeah. But also like that's how it happens. So you're like,
well, correct. That's how she came. Yeah. So this is my favorite part because he says like they're having sex and he goes, Shades, I love to fuck you. Because she doesn't know she's learning the language. He goes, fuck. And then her inner thought was, fuck, I was learning, had many meetings, but this was my favorite. And I was like,
yes, it was.
Yes, it was. And that's like my favorite part because I feel like it's, you've never heard someone not know what the word fuck means. And be like, I like this one.
Yes. And she uses it again.
She does.
But then she says, fuck. It's chapter 33 where Caspia and Andreas have sex. And she, says, fuck. My breath hitched as my body stretched around him. The wave of pleasure so fierce I nearly came apart. The cords of Andrea's neck tightened as he closed his eyes, his head thrown back in ecstasy, and his thrust up his hips, sending his cock deeper. Ride me hard.
Yes.
Fuck. Yeah. And then we get chapter 34, where Odessa and Ransom have sex, which is very, very lovely. So my fingernails dug into his shoulders, hard enough to leave marks, but no green blood. And then I shattered, coming apart so entirely my vision was nothing but white as tears leaked from the corners of my eyes. Odessa. Ransom spoke with his lips against my throat. My name murmured in a voice that was mine and mine alone. His body quaked as I clenched and pulsed around him, the piston of his hips never pausing until I was entirely wrung out. Yes, please. Actually, there's a little bit more to that because it's pretty sexy. I was still reeling with the aftershocks of my orgasm as he pulled away and came all over my nipples. His release hot and sticky and so erotic I liquefied. It's like, they fucked and then he came on her chest. Like, goddamn. And he said he was going to do that too. He's like, I want to come all over your tits. And she's like, okay.
Okay.
Yay. So then we get chapter 49 where Ransom goes down on Odessa and then they have sex. And he ran his tongue through my slit before he fluttered it against my clit. Good rhyming. My head was spinning, dizzy and drunk on his tongue. My body went up in flames as he took me higher and higher, driving me toward a cliff's edge. I exploded on a cry, every muscle in my body quaking when I shattered. My knees weakened, but he held on to me, keeping me balanced as he continued to lick, drawing out my orgasm until I was spent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Slow burn, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a slow burn. Okay.
Yes, I do.
In terms of what's next, if you love this book, it gave me a lot of Oak and Holly series vibes by K.A. Lindy. First 2 books, The Wren in the Holly Library, The Robin on the Oak Throne, are already out. We've covered them on the show. 3rd book, super excited to read, The Raven at the Ash Door, comes out in June. Woo! This also made me think a lot about the Dark Inheritance trilogy by Rebecca Robinson. So Serpent and the Wolf, The Wicked and the Damned. When Mama and Daddy have been up to some things. And there's a lot of secrets, right? So.
I like it. I liked it. But then join us next week when we dive into the world of contemporary romance and discuss the new book by Megan Quinn, Rules for the Summer, just in time for summer. Happy reading, everybody.
Happy reading. Thanks for listening to Late Night Reads. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Late Night Reads Podcast. And check out latenightreads.com for even more information about all the books we're reading. If you loved today's episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. And share the show with your fellow book lovers.